It's Friday the 13th, and it's time for Friday Night Live. Welcome, Law Nerds. I'm Emily D. Baker. Tonight, we are covering a quick weekly roundup with some of the happenings around the interwebs. Then we are going to go over two sentencing memorandums in the Josh Duggar case. It's a case I have been following just already about a year. His detention hearing was May 5th last year, and he is being sentenced May 25th. So that is coming up, but we have the sentencing memos in, some surprises, some new information, some statements in his favor. So that'll be interesting to go over together. And I will give the appropriate warnings when we get into that topic. And then we're going to go over what's been going on this week. Even though court's been dark with Depp versus Heard, stuff has still been happening all around the interwebs. And then there's a few little updates from me as just a human. And tonight, for those of you that have not been on a Friday Night Live because you found me during my Depp and Heard coverage, welcome to your first Friday Night Live. I've got a watermelon whiskey this evening. If it's your first FNL, go ahead and pop a 1 in the chat. So good to see you. I'm going to roll the intro. We're going to get going. Lots to cover tonight and lots of time. The OGs are like, Emily, every time you say lots of time for questions, things happen. Yes, I know, but lots of time for questions tonight. For the replay crew, love you. All the timestamps will be down below, and away we go. It's just time to get into it. I have missed FNL. It is back, and I am living. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. So for those of you who were on our members only live stream this week, and for those of you that missed the replay, I had uploading issues over on Patreon. It's re-uploading. Apologies for that. For those of you who caught it, on Wednesday, Thursday. Is today Friday? What is life today? On Thursday, I was joking about the fact that I was going to be doing a LA Times panel over on Twitter, and that ended up looking something like me and all of the blue check marks around me, which was very interesting. I was like, hey, me, what about me? And so on our members only live stream, I had made a number of jokes about the fact that Twitter had no love for me. I think we said, she doesn't even go here anyway. But then the improbable, the unimaginable, the unthinkable, the unbelievable happened, and they verified me. It's like, what is even happening over on Twitter? So there we go. Over on Twitter, I am now, I always use dark mode, so I feel like I'm a white check mark, but there we go. I promise we have not changed. That's not true. The one thing that is going to change me, this is because of the law nerds. I'm going to tell you that this is because of the law nerds. Absolutely 100% for sure. I did not realize this was a thing. And then Famous Birthdays reached out to me and was like, hey, we need you on Famous Birthdays. I was like, what? You need me where? You need me doing what? And so Famous Birthdays reached out, and I don't know. I'm now on Famous Birthday. I don't know what happens, but you know what I didn't know? That Mr. Beast and I have the same birthday. Who knew that? I didn't know that. I wanted to see the other May 7th birthdays. So here we go. Here's the other May 7th birthdays. Mr. Beast is a May 7th birthday. Who knew? I don't know who a lot of these other people are, which is what they're going to say when they go look at it and are like, hey, who are you? But I love that we have multiple YouTube stars and TikTok stars up here in the May 7th birthdays, which I thought was hilarious. I don't know. I thought it was hilarious. I was like, okay. We are now officially a YouTube star, I suppose. I don't know what's happening. Kimmy's husband's birthday is also May 7th. Kimmy, congratulations to you and your husband. So Your birthday comes with a blue check. Apparently, that's what happens now. I don't know. Chelsea said, now you have to brag to your children. I did. And that went super well. I shared it over on Instagram. I teased my teen about the fact that I had gotten verified on Twitter. And my teen said, they give out verifications like candy, mom. What are you even talking about? So we had a giggle about that. And then I said, but the podcast is doing really well. And he's like, yeah, it's like maybe a 0.03% of the world's population. Don't worry about yourself. Look, my 13-year-old, the quick wit is something we encourage. So I don't even mind the disses as long as they are clever and we can have some little banter, which is all you're going to get with a 14-year-old. I keep calling him 13 and he's like, mom. So this is what we get. This is where we're at now at our house with a healthy bit of banter, which was absolutely me as a kid. So I thought that that was absolutely hysterical. But I also think that that's because of the law nerds, because somebody was looking enough for what my birthday was. So there it is. It's all out there. I'm old. It is the year we have reached 44, which feels like a good age. I'm very comfortable with it. I loved that I'm now old enough. I feel like I can joke about being old without people being like, oh, come on. Oh, come on. And I'm like, no, I get to actually say that now. Like, leave me be. I've reached my 40s. I get to say things. That's where we're at. So I thought it was funny. So that's where we're at. All of the things have been happening because of the law nerds. Also, law nerds, did you know that we've all collectively pissed off the mainstream media? I'm here for all of it. When we get into the Johnny Depp Amber Heard coverage, we're going to talk a little bit about the mainstream media and the little bit of a ribbing they are giving to the online coverage of this case. I talked about it a bit in the members only live stream, but I didn't realize how much it was going to be a thing. And there is article after article. Most of those articles are going after TikTokers, but they are also mentioning other channels, including myself and Legal Bites and, Law and Lumber and others that have grown because of this trial coverage. But also the media is covering this trial nonstop. Like even over on, generally like tech media is covering this case. Everyone is covering this case. And so it's very funny for me to see traditional media saying, but people are covering it on YouTube and TikTok. No shit. And if people want to watch all of it, they can watch all of it. Communities get to choose. So it was just the fact that they were coming for, or in some regards, coming for some of the content creators. Look, sometimes the content is not going to be your cup of tea. You don't have to watch it. That's the way the internet works. And here's the thing about free speech. Sometimes free speech is really uncomfortable. Sometimes free speech is off color and distasteful and gross and stuff that you hate. But also that's part of the balance of people getting to choose what they engage with and what they don't engage with. And so to have legal commentators, and it's a little different than I think memifying the trial, though we will evaluate some of the memes too, but explaining the trial in a way that you're not going to get elsewhere. You're not going to get lawyers sitting on court TV all day explaining the trial. They give a roundup of what they saw in court and sometimes give their opinions, but they don't get it's not the same. And I think LawTube is separate and different from like, a TikTok account that normally covers this now covering the trial. But I don't have a problem with like a TikTok makeup artist being like, oh, is it possible that these bruises can be covered up with makeup or not covered up with makeup or made by makeup? Good. Lean into your zone of genius and tell me what you think. People want to weigh in. And there's a lot of different kinds of experts that want to weigh in on this case. And I think that legal analysis is different than memifying. I have no problem memifying the lawyers when they object to their own questions or talk about their cats. Sometimes memifying descriptions of abuse are not my preference. I don't love that, but I think it's here for a conversation. I also think, the attorneys in these large cases are kind of open for commentary. They are the lawyers. And I also think it's fair to make commentary on what we're seeing and ask questions. And I get the feeling that sometimes the mainstream media wants to shut down questioning, and questioning is not bad. Questioning is always good. So asking questions about things is never a bad thing. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes you don't want to have the conversation, but questions are not bad. So with that, we are going to get into the weekly roundup. I am going to talk more about and I don't hate the media, but I will ask questions when I have questions. So with that, it is time to get into the weekly roundup. Yeah, we have a bumper for that. It's been a while, but we're going to roll it now. Our first story, I'm going to cover a little bit of Real Housewives because Real Housewives of Beverly Hills is popping off again. The season premiere aired Wednesday. What day is it? Wednesday. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Why? Because we've been everywhere this week. So I've not had a chance to watch it yet, but I'm going to go over a bit of where the Girardi case is right now in case you are re-engaging. Do we talk about pop culture over here? Yes, we do. I love pop culture and I love talking about housewives, especially when they are in legal shenanigans. And woo! The Girardi legal shenanigans, they are something. So we're going to do just a quick roundup of where those are at. As this trial ends and more happens in the bankruptcy court, we will be diving back into what's going on in the bankruptcy court. So with that, let's take a look at the roundup from the LA Times. And look, again, don't hate all media. Definitely don't hate all media. Do we kind of love a temper tantrum a little bit? I mean, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. It's interesting to watch the hand wringing of like, TikTokers are getting views. It's very interesting. Like, it's very interesting to see. So let's talk about where we're at. If you have not engaged with this story and you're like, Housewives, please know this story, the Girardi story, is one of the most unbelievable, massive fraud law firm scandals that I think has ever happened, and definitely that I have ever witnessed. When I started looking at this story after the Edelson PC lawsuit in Illinois back in 2020, that was like, the divorce is a sham and his business loaned her $20 million. The allegations were a little bit spicy, and lawsuits are being written this way, so you get the little bit of spice. So the lawsuit was a little bit spicy, and I'm like, ooh. And then I started looking at all the other lawsuits against the firm, and I'm like, oh. And then the judge held Tom Girardi in Illinois in contempt, and I'm like, ooh. And then the judge said, but where did the $2 million go? And the attorney for Tom Girardi is like, we don't think he has it. What? Now, for us normies, $2 million is like, obviously I don't have it. But for the level of wealth that Girardi has portrayed, 2 mil should be like, hey, just here? Like, hey, just here, right? But the money was just gone. And now we're in this bankruptcy. And the original bankruptcy number we were seeing out of the law firm bankruptcy, because remember, there are two. There's the bankruptcy of Tom Girardi, the person, and the bankruptcy of Girardi Keese, the law firm. The law firm has the larger bulk of claims against it, of clients that didn't get paid and others. The personal one has, and I went through all of the claims that were in 8 months ago, through like the racing horse vet in Florida and the high-end dry cleaner that hadn't been paid, and like the landscaping company and all of those personal debts from the home that weren't being paid. Those are through the personal bankruptcy. And I think that's where Erika Girardi is ultimately going to struggle, because the bankruptcy court on that bankruptcy has already said that those debts will not be discharged or wiped clean or erased in bankruptcy. So Erica can be left holding the bag over there. What does she know about the bankruptcy over on the law firm side? We don't know yet. But what we do know from this new report from the LA Times and a report from the State Bar is that the State Bar is looking into this and has just agreed to turn over records and information to the bankruptcy court, which means we might start to see some of this information come into the bankruptcy. What was the California State Bar doing for fucking decades? Well, I don't know. But what they weren't doing was disciplining Tom Girardi with the over 100 lawsuits brought against him and his law firm over these types of issues. So we are now here at the beginning of season, 12 of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She's still talking about this case. We're still watching the law unfold at the same time reality TV cameras are rolling. And we saw a 4-part finale with her talking about this case. And oh boy, I've heard from episode 1, she's talking about things, and I will watch that tomorrow and give my reaction both probably on Quick Bits, don't hold me to it this weekend, but also on Instagram. And then I always put those over on TikTok too. So at the Emily D. Baker on the socials is where those will be. But now the LA Times has rounded up where we're at with the money stuff, which I'm always so interested in. There have been more than 670 claims made against the law firm. 670 separate claims. Y'all are going to ask me, Emily, are these claims all going to be paid? Negative, Ghost Rider. These are not all going to be paid. There isn't enough money to pay them all. So 670 claims made, adding up to $495 million. Girl. $495 million, almost $500 million in claims against the law firm. A lot of the claims that I have seen are clients that didn't get paid. There are other debts. And as the LA Times goes on to say, the claims come from former clients, vendors to the law firm, former firm employees, and fellow attorneys who say they were stiffed out of their share of case settlements. I'm sorry, former fellow attorneys who were stiffed out of case settlements. I know that you need to make your claims, write them off of your taxes. Fetch is not going to happen. Like fetch is not going to happen. The clients need to happen. The employees who are not attorneys need to get paid. But the former client, look, bankruptcy priority does not go by Emily says so. It is very legally specific, and not all these clients are going to get to go first. And it pisses me off, but that is the way that bankruptcy works. And this is where we talk about it, and the OG law nerds are going to be like, morality versus legality. There are going to be differences here where you look at how the money gets doled out in this case and go, ew, I don't like that result. But bankruptcy has a very specific order of priority, and we will do a bankruptcy stream where we go over all of that in more detail. Did you know Law and Lumber also practices in bankruptcy? He does. So we will have a chat and we will talk about order of priority and all of those details. But right now, what you need to know is I have feelings. We all have feelings. The way that we want the order of bankruptcy to go is clients and like employees that are non-lawyers and like vendors and then like all the other lawyers, right? That's how we feel like morality should happen. Legality is going to be order of priority and who has claims, and it's not going to be all of the clients because a lot of the clients have not filed the types of claims they need to do to be secured creditors that make sure that they are at the top of the list. So morality, legality, they are two completely separate things. So how and whether those claims will be paid remains to be seen. We are years away from that, I think. The law firm had scores of cases, and those have been farmed out to attorneys who continue representing clients to try to achieve settlements. If settlements are still achieved, a portion of those funds will go back into the law firm to be paid back out to creditors. Oh, keep reading, Emily. Yes. As the LA Times says, and I just said it's a long process, there have been other ways the trustee is identifying and monetizing its assets. For example, there was an auction last year of furniture memorabilia. Sorry, the thunder. Look, There is weather this evening. It is always going to startle me. For those of you that I have not talked about a ton, I do startle at loud noises. That is part of where I'm at. So occasionally you will see me get startled by either somebody coming in or by thunder. That is just, it is me. I get startled by loud noises. I love thunder and lightning, but so if you see me jumping, it's thunder. I don't know if you'll hear it on the directional mic, but thunder. Also living in the South, like country music makes sense in all different ways. And I'm like, every time there's a thunderstorm, I'm like, thunder rolls make so much more sense. Like living in SoCal, it just didn't make the same sense. It makes sense now. And then there's times I think thunder with the thunder. Yeah, anyway, that's where my head goes every time there's thunder. So the auction last year, Ryan Bailey from, oh, am I going to forget Ryan's podcast name while I'm literally talking about it? Ryan's podcast, he got like the red underwear, the like lacy lingerie set that was like randomly in Tom Girardi's drawer that was not for Erica. He auctioned that. Heather McDonald from Juicy Scoop got a coat rack, like all the things. The wire transfer receipt from the Pacific Gas and Electric's $263 million settlement went for more than $700. That's something I actually would have bid on. A suit went for $70. An old Cadillac sold for more than $6,000. They didn't talk about the lingerie. The bankruptcy trustee also retained a special counsel whose assignment is to recover assets that went to Erica Girardi. Last week, the assignment was officially expanded to pursue claims against Girardi Keese's litigation funders. This might not sound fun to you, but here's why this is fun to me. The litigation lenders, it seemed maybe had reason to suspect that this was a problem, and they kept pumping money into this firm. It's now been alleged in other filings that they were part of perhaps a racketeering organization with that as to one of the legal litigation funders. But did the legal litigation funders break the rules? Do they have money from the firm they shouldn't have got? Did they get treated as priority outside of bankruptcy before the bankruptcy? Are there problems here? And so I'm glad someone's looking at, I mean, it's so much more fun to look at Erica, but the litigation funders and the other lawyers are where some of these issues are. And I'm glad that they are now expanding the role of special counsel to the litigation funders, which loaned millions to the firm to keep it afloat, as well as the law firm's accountants and outside legal counsel. The accountant has already indicated that they will plead the fifth. As to the criminal case, I have no insight either way. Yes, a federal judge in Chicago said he'd refer the matter for criminal investigation, but no one has been charged at this time. That's going to be difficult. We're going to have to wait and see. The feds take their time, and they have plenty of time on this. Where does Erica fit into all the legal wrangling? Though she was dismissed from a fraud lawsuit against Tom in January, she was just last month named alongside him in a $50 million racketeering suit from Edelson PC, among other outstanding cases. That's because the other lawsuits are in different jurisdictions. Is this opportunism, or is her level of involvement in Tom's alleged wrongdoing still an open question? And that is a very good question. It's a complicated legal horizon, agreed. Her divorce is ongoing. Well, it's paused because of both the bankruptcy and because Tom Girardi is now in a conservatorship. A conversation for another day. Erica is also one of the claimants on the Girardi Keese bankruptcy. Oh, she did that. She also said that there were assets left over were hers because they were marital property. There's not going to be assets left over, but she made the claim. She sure did. And her earrings have been turned over to potentially be sold. So there's that. Yet, as I said earlier, Erica has been the target of the firm's bankruptcy trustee, and they've tried to recover assets of the firm. The bankruptcy special counsel began by identifying more than $242,000 that Erica was assigned to receive from a settlement of the state lottery. Tens of thousands were set to continue flowing to her in the coming years. The lawyer has pushed back on that, saying the payments were mailed to the Girardi Keese law firm, which managed Erica's finances, and that Ms. Girardi does not have a recollection of receiving the lottery payments. Earlier this year, the trustee began trying to claw back some diamond earrings that they allege Tom Girardi paid for with money out of a client trust account. And by allege, I mean they included the check in their filing. But yes, at this point, they are allegations, but there was a check. The $750,000 payment went to a downtown jeweler described as cost. I have a reel and a TikTok about it. I was outraged. Erica's lawyers have also contested this move, but nevertheless, she agreed to put the earrings in a safe deposit box and not sell the jewelry. Court filings from last week indicate that the parties have also engaged in settlement discussions, which is good, and that the earrings are going to be appraised, also good, which suggests some resolution as to this dispute is near. But Erica's attorney has positioned these actions as the trustee seeking to blame Erica for the events of 15 years ago at a law firm which Erica had no part. If you've read her book, you let me know if you think she had no part. They said the earrings were innocently received 15 years ago from her now estranged and then extraordinarily wealthy husband. Both things might be true, though. She might not have known that he took the money and used it to pay for the earrings. That's true. Erica was named in an elaborate court filing by the Chicago lawyers Edelson PC as the front woman for the firm, but it was only a draft lawsuit submitted. We have not seen it filed yet in California, but the federal judge Durkin approved the arrangement, which clears the way for Edison to file it in California court. So it will be filed in California court. I'm going to swoop one Girardi question before we move on with the rest of our quick bits. Will Keese be drawn into the lawsuits if it can be proven that the clients had not been getting paid correctly from the beginning, or will Keese be getting his retirement paid? Kendra, that's a fantastic question. Keese is the former partner. I don't think he will get his retirement. He is trying to. I don't think he is a secured lender, so he will be one that's at the back of the line. He was supposed to be getting paid out by the firm, which I've covered in other content. He was supposed to be getting retirement payments from Girardi, and the money is poof gone. I actually feel bad for Keese. I don't know if they can prove how much he knew, but again, if they can't prove what Keese knew, the former law partner, how can they prove what Erica knew? And that's a very interesting question legally for me. But if Keese didn't know, he's expecting his retirement checks to come monthly through this firm, and the firm is now defunct and the money's not coming in. That would be a real shitty position to be in. So I don't think Keese will be drawn into these lawsuits based on how long he's been retired, but it's not impossible unless it's outside the statute of limitations. But the fraud was recently discovered, so some of the statutes extend for fraud. But so far, Keese has not been named in anything. Girardi has been named, Erica's been named, the son-in-law has been named, and then Griffin, the other attorney, has been named. So we have not seen Keese being named yet. So that's where that lies. Right now, I'm going to see if there are any other questions just on that as we move on, because with the rest of questions, it is my normal habit and practice to get to all of them at the end. So I love that the chat gets to chat as we talk. But with that, I will get to questions at the end and try when I ask for questions. If you guys have a question now, we'll just go through that when we get to Q&A at the end. So with that, I appreciate it. Raquel, this is a great question. It's not a stupid question. No stupid questions. This might be a stupid question. No, but how can they parse which person knew what? They have to use external evidence to prove what people knew. It is a very good question. We are not all the way there yet, but we will see what happens with the other attorneys. There are emails back and forth. When I went through the racketeering lawsuit, you can go through and they're alleging external actions as circumstantial evidence to Erica and some direct emails with regard to Lyra and Griffin. So go through the video on that racketeering and you'll see how they're alleging it now. But as they get as they get into discovery, they will likely know more about that. And with that, we have to take a real quick moment to thank the sponsor for this stream before we get into two more real quick bits and then move on. I can't believe it's almost 30 minutes in, and then move on to Duggar and to Depp and Heard. A big thank you to today's sponsor, Upstart. You know, a lot has changed in the last few years, including the cost of goods. But what hasn't really changed is how you apply for credit and having to deal with those super high interest credit cards. You know, the average American has over $6,000 in credit card debt, but the average interest rate is 14%, and that can take up to 15 years to pay off. But Upstart has a new solution. Upstart uses artificial intelligence to look at lending from a more holistic viewpoint, not just based on FICO scores. Upstart is designed to improve affordable credit. And who doesn't need that right now? They approve 27% more applicants and they average 16% lower APRs. The APRs are where they'll get you on the credit for sure. No one wants those high interest rates anyway. So don't wait and check your rate today at upstart.com/Lawnerd. That's right, upstart.com/Lawnerd. And don't forget to use my link to let Upstart know that you are a Lawnerd. Just head to upstart.com/Lawnerd. Thank you to Upstart for sponsoring this video. We should get back into it. And as we are getting back into it, DTC Prime Time, thank you for this. I do share about the things that have been struggles and quirks in my life, including my ADHD, dyslexia, and other things. The Erlen lenses have been a game changer for me, which is why I talk about them, because if you can find the thing that helps you feel more comfortable in the world, I'm going to talk about it forever. So thank you so much for that. And that is one of the reasons that I share. I will occasionally, on a rare occasion, see a comment like, oh my God, she talks about ADHD so much. Well, nobody was normalizing it for me growing up, and I felt a ton of shame about it. So if I can sit here at 44 and be like, these are parts of my quirks, and maybe you recognize that in you and don't feel so ashamed, because we're just, those of us with the neurodivergent brains are on a slightly different operating system. And sometimes I need to explain that to people. So it's a nice thing to be able to say, hey, this is what's working for me. And I find those conversations to be so incredibly important. So as we are moving on, there are two topics that I wanted to do tonight and have not had time to look into sufficiently to discuss. And one of that is the Vanderbilt nurse sentencing. She was sentenced to probation. I have not gone through, but I want to listen to the sentencing hearing. I'm still trying to parse through the prosecution and why it was chosen. So with that, I can't really give much comment on that sentencing yet, because I have not gone all the way in on the Vanderbilt nurse sentencing case, even though it's just down the road for me. Just try to comment when I can actually add something. Can't add anything yet because I have not gotten all the way through the legal stuff on that. Second, Rust. I'm going to be going through all the newly released interviews. I truly, with Depp and Heard, just have not had time for it. It is top priority to get to. It is going to be one of the first things that we get back to, because I want to go through all of the new footage that was released. I still haven't seen the FBI report come back with regard to the weapon, so I will be getting back into Rust soon. So with that, I wanted to point out something that I thought was very interesting, and we're going to talk about mainstream media and this phenomenon of legal commentators just going on the internet and taking the reins for themselves. But live streaming has been my favorite way to engage on YouTube. I really do. Aside from being a legal analyst, I consider myself a streamer. Streamers look different. We don't all just play Minecraft, and I love being a streamer. I love connecting with you. I love seeing your comments in real time. I love streaming. Even when I know that there's times I will embarrass myself mispronouncing things, reading things wrong, whatever. Love being a streamer. You know who else wants to be a streamer? Netflix. Netflix wants to live stream? What? What? Netflix, what are we doing? Girl, what are we doing? I know that Netflix has had some really difficult financial reports, and that they are not loving the financial outlook at Netflix, but Netflix is exploring live streaming for the first time, plans to roll out for unscripted series. Are we an unscripted series over here? I feel like we are. Roll out for unscripted series and stand-up specials. What is happening? Netflix is going live for the first time. Why? But why though? Why? Deadline understands that the streamer is exploring the launch of live streaming. It plans to roll out the capacity, which Netflix confirmed was in the early stages of development, for its swath of unscripted shows and stand-up specials. It would mean that Netflix would be able to use it for live voting for competition series and talent contests, such as its upcoming dance competition series, Dance 100, from the Circle producer Studio Lambert. Similarly, it could use it if it decides to bring back its Netflix is a Joke Festival, the live comedy event featuring around 300 stand-up performances across LA, including Dave Chappelle, Larry David, and Pete Davidson. Many of the shows were being filmed with plans to air around 12 of them on the service. In future, it could potentially air shows live, albeit with a few seconds delay in case things get saucy. See, on YouTube, we don't need as much of a delay because I get to choose when things get saucy. And, you know, the FCC will let me be. They'll let me be me on the YouTube. Now, the FCC won't let me be. The Federal Communications Commissions. We'll talk about the FCC another day. But anyway, with a few second delay in case things get saucy. Netflix, why are we worried about things getting saucy? You're not cable network. Like, you're allowed to be saucy. It's why we watched Game of Thrones on HBO. They're allowed to get more saucy. Other options include for live reunions for shows such as Selling Sunset, which just aired a reunion special for its 5th season. The move opens up the potential to order a whole new raft of unscripted series to use the technology, bringing it in line with other linear networks, which often air live specials for big competition series, such as ABC's American Idol and Dancing with the Stars, which is moving to Disney+. I didn't know that. The company has already experimented with the different release patterns for its unscripted series and social experiments, such as The Circle and Love is Blind. Could you imagine Love is Blind live? Y'all. The inevitable next question is whether such a move could be rolled out to cover sports, which has been a hot topic of discussion given its recent success of F1 series Drive to Survive. However, Deadline understands this is unrelated to those suggestions. Netflix wants to live stream. Interesting. Okay, Netflix, we'll see what you do. We'll see what you do. And in our last weekly roundup, I had to mention this because I'm just super curious about where this story goes. Because it looks like the Elon Musk Twitter deal might be on ice, but then Elon Musk is now saying that he is still committed to the deal. So Elon Musk tweeted Friday, and this is coming from Law 360. I love their reporting. A lot of their writers are also attorneys, which I find really helpful because brains working the way brains working. Elon Musk tweeted Friday that he has hit pause on his blockbuster $44 billion Twitter acquisition. Hey, I've got an idea. Y'all, what if Elon Musk just like maybe didn't buy Twitter and just used like $500 million of that, or even less than $500 million of that, like $100 million of that, to pay the Girardi Keys victims as like an act of charity? Do you think the government would let him write it off? Like, could the IRS let him write those off as charitable donations and just like do the good for humanity? I mean, I know that it's not his responsibility because it's totally not. But if you have $44 billion to buy Twitter, I mean, is like 200 or 300 million that big of a deal? Is it? I mean, is it? It's only a few million. I need it to happen. Elon, if you tank this deal, I'll go buy another Tesla. Like, I'll do my part. Me being totally facetious and sarcastic, but we could do our part. Could we do that? Could we do that? I mean, if we have $44 billion to buy Twitter, maybe just like a couple $100 million for the Girardi victims, maybe just like, let's let the IRS let him write it off and we just make that happen. Because if there's just money in the world, let's just do good and maybe not buy Twitter. Maybe. So anyway, the move followed a Twitter assessment on its quarterly report that fake accounts and spam made up for less than 5% of active user posts. Musk said clearing the Twitter landscape of bogus postings was one of the motivations to buy, which already has triggered a stockholder lawsuit in Delaware's court seeking a minimum 2/3 vote shares not tied to Musk. The Orlando Police Pension Fund filed suit against Twitter and its board and Musk on May 6, arguing that Musk's 9.6% holding plus agreement, arrangement, and understandings to buy shares of other big stockholders pushed him over the 15% interest investor threshold. I don't know why. I don't know why the Orlando Police Pension Fund is involved, but this is a suit that is on my radar. Lizzle Bottom W. I saw that trending on Twitter about Snoop Dogg buying Twitter. I saw it on Twitter. The accumulation, which allegedly is not fully disclosed when the board approved the deal, rules out approval solely by board vote, the suit said. Twitter must instead secure a 2/3 vote of shares neither held by or committed to Musk to take the company private, the pension fund claimed. I'm interested if this pension fund has a large investment as a stockholder in Twitter. So I will be looking at why the Orlando Police Pension Fund is invested as a party here. I want to know. So that is the end of our quick bits. And with that, we are moving into the Duggar sentencing memorandums. I have a few notes. As we are getting into the Duggar sentencing memorandums, first of all, I try not to parse my words too much when I talk about these things, because again, these are law things. I think they are important law things. That said, the prosecution sentencing memo, and I'm going to go over in just a moment the process of sentencing and where these sentencing memos play, how the recommendations work, what the judge can and can't do, and what can happen on the 25th. However, these sentencing memos are in fact public. They are on Pacer. They can be purchased. I am not going over every single aspect of these sentencing memos because they graphically detail the CSAM that Duggar had on his computer. And we do not need to graphically detail the types of images that he was looking at. Just go with, ooh, gross, bad, awful, bad, and don't Google. And just save yourself. There are things in life that you can't unknow, and there are things in this filing you can't unknow. I am not going to go through them in detail. I am going to go through the sentencing aspect of this and the computer savvy aspect of this and the kind of the interesting parts that we do not know yet, but we are not going to go more in depth than that. It is going to be a decidedly deleted aspect of this, but this information is in the sentencing memo. I am skipping it. I'm telling you why I am skipping it. The defense memo doesn't go over this in as much detail, but I am skipping it from there. And I will be going into some of the letters in support of him. With that, I appreciate the chat knowing that we talk about facts on this channel, no name calling. It is hard when someone has been convicted of these types of cases to not just have your emotions very much triggered. We all have emotions about this case. We're going to talk about the law side of it now, acknowledging that we all have emotions about this case. What can't happen is what a lot of people would like to happen. They're like, just throw him in prison and lock away the key. I understand, not a possibility in this case. So with that, we are going to go over the parts of the sentencing memo that are legally relevant to our purposes about talking about what is going to happen in court on May 25th when Duggar comes before the judge to be sentenced. For those of you that do not follow reality TV or do not follow the Duggar family of 19 kids and counting and Josh Duggar, there is a great little synopsis at the beginning of the prosecution's motion. This is a criminal case. It had 2 counts. We will talk about those counts and then we will move on. He is coming up for sentencing before the judge. These are recommendations. The judge gets to pick the sentence within bumpers or boundaries, and we will talk about what those boundaries legally are. So thank you all for that. And we are going to be talking, just a trigger warning, we are going to be talking about past acts of hand-on SA. I am not going to detail those either. They are detailed in this memo. I am not going through those details. Those are widely available on the internet. I am not going through them. There are prior allegations, but not convictions of hands-on SA. I am not going through it other than that is relevant to the government asking for him to be sentenced to more time. I'm all about that. Go ahead and ask for all of the time. I am totally fine with people that share, distribute, and view these types of images going to prison. Cool. Totally fine with it. We're not going to detail it. We're not going to detail it that way. So with that, let us get into this sentencing memo. For the parts I will be skipping over, just know that I will be taking it off the screen. So just know. And it's totally okay to have opinions, chat. I get it. The things that I try to avoid in the chat, and for those of you that are new law nerds, I try to avoid things like calling for someone's harm, self-harm, name calling, accusing of crimes. Saying this is gross is not name calling. Saying I hate these kinds of cases is not name calling. I acknowledge there are feelings. We are going to try to talk about the facts, and it is very hard to parse the two sometimes. This is good practice of saying, okay, what does the law say? What does the law allow? How do I feel about that? And then where can those things change? Remember this, well, we'll get into it as we get into it. Government sentencing memorandum. So this is a sentencing memo from the prosecution to the judge. Hey, Your Honor, what we think you should do is this. Matthew, this was not against his kids. This was illicit and illegal, inappropriate images of children from the computer. So we will be getting into that. This has nothing to do with any harm to his own children. If that was the case, there are separate charges for that. These charges do not indicate any harm to his children in these charges. So because this is a reality TV star and it matches up my wheelhouse with being a former prosecutor, we're going to talk about it. Comes now the U.S. by and through the U.S. attorneys. And they file their sentencing memorandum saying overview. Their overview is great. These AUSAs have been fantastic. AUSAs do a lot of writing. These are federal prosecutors. They write a lot more in federal court than state court does. On or about April 28th, the defendant, Josh Duggar, was named in a 2-count indictment filed in the Western District of Arkansas. That's April 28th, 2021. The indictment charged Duggar with receipt and possession of CP, also known as CSAM, child SA material. I will call it both. The law still calls it CP. That might change in the future. On or about December 9th, 2021, after an 8-day jury trial, Duggar was convicted of both counts. Thereafter, the court accepted the jury verdict, ordering a pre-sentencing report, the PSR. We'll be talking about the PSR, to be completed and remanded Duggar into custody. So since the day he was convicted, December 9th, he has been in jail. The offense conduct overall reflects that Duggar, over a 4-day period, did the following: set up a hidden partition on his work computer and installed both the Tor, the Onion router, sometimes referred as the dark web browser, separately, and a BitTorrent peer-to-peer file sharing client on the partition in order to download and view the images. At present, the U.S. probation's calculation under the U.S. sentencing guidelines and in federal cases, there are sentencing guidelines. The purpose of sentencing guidelines, whether you agree or disagree, is that they keep like cases. When you have similar defendants of similar conduct with similar histories and backgrounds, they get sentenced the same. So it's not like if you get sentenced in Arkansas, it's wildly different than if you get sentenced for the same crime with everything relatively the same in New York. Trying to keep federal cases the same, one of the ways they do that is for the U.S. with the U.S. sentencing guidelines. Judges can depart. That's a whole separate conversation. We're doing an overview of sentencing. So the guidelines set out in the final pre-sentencing report reflects an advisory range of imprisonment of 360 months to life. Hold up, just wait a minute. Not possible in this case, which will be capped by the offense maximum of 240 months set by statute for count 1 in the indictment. The statute that makes what was done a crime caps the punishment for this crime at 20 years. That is it. No mas. 20 years is it. 240 months. I hate that they use months, but I get it. 240 months is the maximum potential sentence. The government made one guideline determinative objection in the initial PSR regarding to the total image count. That is the total number of CP images. I'm not going to get into how videos count as images, but videos, they break down into a calculation of images so that they can say this long of a video counts as this many images, because the guidelines and some of these laws were written before video sharing was so much a thing. It was image sharing. And so there's all these funky calculations, which is why you're going to see argument over how many images it is. A lot of these are video, and the video gets calculated into images. So that's where there is discrepancy in this law. And how do you apply, like, is it one video, or is one video 100 images, or is 6 seconds of a video 6 images? Like, what do we consider an image? And I could law forever on that. I'm not going to bore you today, but that's one of the discrepancies between the number of images, is that some of these are videos and they're calculated to images. The defense objected to 85 of the 168 total paragraphs of the PSR. Here's the thing. The pre-sentencing report is conducted by the probation department, and they go over a number of factors. They do interviews. They conduct an independent report, and then the attorneys can make objections to the report. That report is not publicly available. The attorneys can make objections to the report, and then the final report goes to the judge. So that's why we're talking about the PSR. So with that, the PSR, including but not limited to all offense conduct attributed to Duggar, set out in paragraphs 25 through 88, and all prior acts of SA committed by Duggar, set out in paragraphs 99 through 114. The application of the following enhancements under the guidelines of the 2-level distribution enhancement under the code, the 4-level enhancement under other sections of the code, and the other enhancements under other sections of the code, set out all of the defense objections and the prosecution's objections. With respect to the defense objections, the government submits that the conduct established at trial supports the application and contested enhancements, and establishes that the offense involved 600 or more images, which is a different leveling of crime, warranting the application of a 5-level enhancement. I'm not going to get into the enhancements, but it's like a scale where you scale and appropriate where the different sentencing should be. Less images is on the lower end, more images is on the higher end. So that's what they're talking about with that scale. Accordingly, they say the applicable total offense level under the guidelines should be 42. That's where they peg the offense in the recommended guidelines, which will call for a sentencing range of 360 months to life based on Duggar's placement and criminal history, other law stuff. But the maximum potential sentence permitted by the law is 240 months. So his level of criminality, the level of images on just the broad range guidelines are in that 360 to month range. So they're saying the guideline says 360 months to life, but the crime that he is convicted of only gives you 240 months, which is less than the recommended. So that's the discrepancy. He falls in the sentencing guidelines higher, but that's limited, again, by what he's charged with and what was proven to a jury. So they say, well, the facts established at trial provide sufficient basis to overrule all pending defense objections to the offense conduct in the guidelines calculation. The United States could potentially call Special Agent Faulkner if the court wants them to. The testimony would take an hour. Based on all the facts of the case, including Duggar's prior essay exploitation of multiple minors, and in consideration of the extraordinary efforts that he took to obtain and view the materials, the nature of the materials viewed, and his efforts to conceal the criminal conduct, and his refusal to take accountability, i.e. plea. I don't always love that they hold it against people, because you have a right to a criminal trial. So I don't love that they say, oh, well, he didn't take accountability for his actions. He has a right to make the government prove it. So it's sometimes difficult for me when they're like, he should have just pled guilty and said, yeah, I did it. He has the right to a trial. So will the court take that into account? Some, but he does have the right to a trial. Do I think it should count heavily against? No, but it also depends on what he says when he gets into sentencing and if he shows any remorse or anything like that. That can be considered by the court. So they talk about the objections lodged by the defense. They talk about the enhancements for the type of images, but we're just going to get into why they're looking at it, and they're talking about the lengths that he went to use the different peer-to-peer sharings and to use the partition and the different filings and stuff like that. So I'm going to scoot through the objections because some of them do get into the type of images, and we're not going to cover that. They are arguing in part his knowledge in this. I will note that there is still a pending motion for dismissal and motion for new trial that the court hasn't ruled on. The court will most likely rule on that verbally and issue a written ruling the day of sentencing on the 25th. I imagine the judge is just going to deny all of those motions. So the defense made all the standard motions. I covered them in other content, went through what the defense was arguing to throw this case out. I don't think their arguments are going to stick. A for effort, I think they argued this case legally the best they could, but you're stuck with the facts that you have. And the facts that they have are not good. And the facts that they have are going to land their client in prison. So that's what we've got. They go through the testimony where somebody came in and testified that Duggar was a power user of the computer. All of you beware. All of you beware. All of you are power users by nature of being on the internet, I think. I don't also love how they define a power user, but also they're showing that he has computer knowledge requisite to do the thing, showing again that he's the one doing the thing. So they had this family friend, Jim Holt. If you remember my other testimony, Jim Holt coverage. Jim Holt and his wife were parents of a woman that Duggar was courting. And during their courtship, Duggar disclosed to Jim Holt and his wife his prior essay to multiple underage girls. He was also a minor during that time. So there's that. He disclosed it to them. And they talked about it in one of the hearings. I'm not going to relive that experience because I was like, okay, that's available on the channel when I covered that hearing. So with that, Holt testified that Duggar had advanced computer skills. He testified that Duggar edited commercials and produced literature and graphics for Holt's political campaigns as a teenager. So if you want to know what the law considers a computer power user, there you go. They said that he was familiar with the concept of a Linux partition as far back as 2004. Supporting that testimony, Duggar's offense reflects that he is highly sophisticated and experienced with computer. Notably, prior to downloading the images, Duggar downloaded and installed a Linux partition on his work computer in order to circumvent the internet monitoring software Covenant Eyes. That's a whole separate conversation in other content, which was installed on the Windows partition, the actual Windows partition of his computer. The act itself is reflective of not only Duggar's ability to install the programs, but his elevated understanding of computer operating systems, how they work, and how to circumvent them. Duggar downloaded and installed and utilized the Tor browser and BitTorrent peer-to-peer file sharing programs on the Linux partition side of the computer only to obtain the images. They then say, finally, it is significant in gauging his knowledge of how peer-to-peer programs work that Duggar has a history of using or attempting to use peer-to-peer programs dating back to at least 2017. That's new information for me. At trial, the government's forensic expert of the high-tech investigative unit of the DOJ testified that the peer-to-peer programs were installed and used to download movies on Duggar's personal MacBook seized by law enforcement. Additionally, the director located evidence in the form of Covenant Eyes reports that Duggar tried on 2 occasions in April and May 2017 to download the exact BitTorrent client named uTorrent he used to obtain CSAM in this case, the images. Finally, it was testified that he not only had the Tor browser installed on his iPhone, but that he was using it the very day his car lot was searched to view adult porn, which again, you're allowed to do. But his whole defense was, it wasn't me. If you have the same Tor browser that a lot of people don't have on their computers across 3 different devices that only you have access to, it wasn't me, ain't gonna work. Just negative, Ghost Rider. In summary, the above facts establish at trial that Duggar is a very sophisticated computer user with a history of downloading, installing, and utilizing peer-to-peer file sharing programs, and an understanding that his use of those programs would indeed result in distribution of materials to other, given a total absence of, quote, concrete evidence of ignorance on the part of Duggar, the two-level distribution enhancement should apply. And with that, we are going to swoop past some of the other descriptions of the very young children in the images. Look, some of these image files are known image files that circulate the internet that are older files, not newer files. He is not being charged with creating any of these images. He is being charged only with possessing them and viewing them and downloading them. That is what he is being charged with. So the reason the nature of the images is in this sentencing memo is to remind the court this is the shit that he was looking at, and this warrants departures based on how bad the images were. We knew this back in May last year, because at the detention hearing, when they were trying to keep him in custody, the task force officer that does this said that these image sets were in the worst of the worst image sets that he has seen in his career of doing this. So just don't try to just go with awful and just leave it in your mind at awful. We are then getting into the testimony that Duggar admitted to hands-on essay of minors to Bobby Holt, and that testimony came in. That testimony gave graphic detail of that essay, that was not... When you're talking about law, it always sounds so weird to say mild, but it was bad essay. And so he was a minor, they were minors. That's where we're going to leave that. But that is a history there that was proven in court, even though he was not convicted of it. And that can be used against him to enhance his sentencing in this case, even though he wasn't convicted, because of the type of behavior it is. There are limited circumstances under the law in cases like these where that can be gone into. Some of the victims of that were his sisters. This has also been known on the internet. There are just more details and more graphic details here than was needed for me, but not needed for the judge. And that's why they're getting into it. So they say that the government is not seeking an upward departure. They're seeking the maximum in this case. They're talking about the number of images, over 600. They go into the files again. They're talking about the different factors of sentencing enhancement, and then we're just going to skip to the sentencing recommendation, because the rest of this, A, is the legal basis to ask for it, which they have. These laws are very well established, and they're saying that they need the deterrent factor of a higher sentence, not just for this individual based on his background, but also for a societal deterrent on some of the worst crimes in our society. They need to avoid unwarranted sentence disparities. They list other cases where people have gotten high sentences. And then they ask again that based on all reasons discussed above, including the history of SA with minors, the grave risks associated with his potential to recidivate, and the United States submits that the guidelines compliant sentence of the maximum 240 months is appropriate here. While the government is asking for 20 years, I will tell you now that the government is not going to get 20 years in this case. We're going to go through the defense motion, and then I'll talk about it a bit more, but they're not going to get 20 years on this case. It is going to be frustrating for everyone involved, but he's not going to get the maximum sentence. This maximum sentence is potential for people who have substantially more images. And I know that it sounds like a lot of images, but in these types of cases, this is a very short time span. This is not the most images you see in cases like this. There are cases with images in the millions spanning much longer time frames. This was spanning a very short time frame. So With that, we're going to get into the defendant's sentencing memo. And again, we are going to skip over any other allegations again. So, defendant's sentencing memorandum and motion for downward variance. They're asking the court to go below the maximum of 20 years and to vary from the guidelines and what's being requested. Defendant, by and through counsel, respectfully submits his sentencing memo. The 34-year-old father of 7 who stands before this court for sentencing has lived an admirable life. I'm sorry. Lawyers get paid to do hard things. But that's okay. Okay. An admirable life while navigating unique challenges associated with being in the public spotlight since childhood. Being in the spotlight isn't the thing though here. Like, sir, this is a Wendy's. What is happening? Being in the spotlight is not the issue here. Lawyers get paid to be zealous advocates. Lawyers get paid to be zealous advocates. Everyone deserves good legal representation. These are core beliefs, Emily. But there are days when it is fucking hard. Okay, we're going to keep going. This is why it's a whiskey stream. Duggar pleaded not guilty and proceeded to trial, which is his right to do. He now stands convicted of a serious offense, and as such, this court must pronounce sentence. Yep. However, in determining the appropriate sentence in this case, Duggar asked the court to recognize him for the person he is and the person he can become. I would like the person he can become to not be a person that continues to do this. Zealous advocacy. Everyone deserves good legal representation. For those of you that don't watch Housewives, I am fluffing my aura a la Housewives of Salt Lake City. Okay. Prior to this case, Duggar had never been charged with, let alone convicted of, a single criminal offense. This is factually true, but it's disingenuous for me because... Here's why it's disingenuous. He was not convicted of because his family has sway in their community and were able to maneuver around the shit that was done. So it is factually correct that he has never been charged or convicted. However, it has been proven to a jury that there are prior acts that are abhorrent, not admirable. See how I used another A word there? Snaps for Emily. All right. In stark contrast, he worked exceptionally hard and has always been fully devoted to his family and exemplifies selfless acts outside of the public spotlight that speak to his true character. The judge might be angry reading this. But everyone deserves to have their lawyer. Indeed, as letters from his family and friends demonstrate, oh, they're attached, that's where we're going next, the real Josh Duggar is not the caricature often portrayed in the public spotlight to sell a tabloid or generate internet traffic. And while some people do use the Duggar name in a tabloid fashion to generate clicks and views, there is a big fucking difference between a tabloid caricature for clicks and views and what has been proven to a jury in a court of law in a criminal offense where it has also been proven that he essayed his sisters. So, I understand that there are letters from family and friends seeking leniency, but calling him a caricature that the public made is disingenuous for me. Ooh, I didn't think I'd be this mad. I haven't read this one yet. I read the government's one so I could parse through the horrible bits. I haven't read this one yet. Okay. His wife put a porn monitoring software on his computer. So there's that. He is a profoundly hardworking man, committed with every grain in his body to his family, his faith, and helping those around him at any cost. I see the motions in the chat. If I am so angry, I think this is the new test. When I get so angry about emotion that my face starts to turn red, I think that's when we have to grant the DEFCON red. And with that, for those of you that are new here and those of you that are not, DEFCON red has flashy bits. So this is your flash warning. The flashing stops when the music does, but motion granted, DEFCON red. We now match my face. We match my face. Okay. And with that, we have gotten to a profoundly hardworking man committed with every grain in his body to his family, his faith, and helping those around him at any cost. Chat, how does his faith feel about adult PRN? So I have no problems with the adulty things with consenting adults. I have no issues at all. But I'm just curious how his commitment to his faith is best lived through not just inappropriate child images, but also with adult PRN. I feel like in a lot of religions, that's sort of frowned upon, but you let me know. Y'all know more than I do about this. That is the man who stands before this court for sentencing. Okay. Even before this court pronounces sentence, Duggar's life has already been shattered. Bruh. This was not done to you. This is a choice. This is a complete choice. This is something that doesn't accidentally happen to you. This is not a choice made out of desperation. This is not a choice made out of anything other than this is a choice that you wanted to look at some of the most abhorrent images of children that exist on the internet. And you chose to do that. And you chose to download a partition. You chose to get around the monitoring software that your wife installed on your computer because you were looking at adult images that, again, between consenting adults are fine, but we're not fine within your faith and your marriage, because otherwise, why would they have the imaging or the monitoring software? You did this for yourself. So your life being shattered, I give literally zero fucking fucks about. Boo-hoo. Choice. This was a choice. Everyone's entitled to an attorney. Everyone deserves zealous advocacy. His reputation, career, and family have all suffered because of his choices. However, what speaks to Duggar's true character is that his family remains firmly by his side, and they yearn for the day when he can return home to them. I don't think his sisters do. I don't feel like his sisters are part of that. His 7 children and loving wife are struggling to make do without him through his actions and choice. I have prosecuted people in circumstances where I look at them and go, this is a shit lot. And I hope that whatever we do here, that you can recover your life, because I understand why you are making the choices that you are making. And I understand how we got here. Can we help undo how we got here? This is not one of those cases. No. This is not something you ever, this is a choice with exaggerated steps to make that choice and to find the things that you were looking for, that you were seeking out on the internet. And again, I wouldn't be here castigating somebody who was just looking at adults doing the things adults do. Like, you want to get on OnlyFans, boo, and go take a look? Go ahead. Pay the people. Go ahead and look at what they're sharing. This is not that. These are children. You have 7 children. And you are looking at the most abhorrent images available of children. So no, I'm sorry that your wife is struggling to make do without you, but maybe your family that stands by you could step up and support your wife and your 7 children because you are no longer in their family due to your own choices. Okay. This motion, y'all, everyone deserves good legal counsel. Everyone deserves good legal counsel. Everyone deserves good legal counsel. Oh, Brittany in the chat is like, just wait for Michelle's letter. Oh, we're going to get to his wife's letter. Don't you worry. And then we're going to get to, Depp Heard stuff. Who would have thought that Depp Heard would be the palate cleanser this evening? But there we are. His loving wife and children are struggling to make do without him. They wait for the day he can return to care for them, to love them, and provide for them. Maybe you think about that before you do the things. His wife, Anna, shares, quote, the happiest part of my day by far is when daddy comes home from work and his cheerful voice fills the house. Did she call her husband daddy? Unironically? Wait. Ew. I'm trying not to judge, but in this context, in this court, referring to her husband as daddy, not in a cheeky way, is, this is not the time to be like, I love it when daddy comes home. Like, look, my 20th wedding anniversary is coming up. I get it. I get being excited when daddy comes home. This is not the forum for that. My face is so red. I'm so angry. I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Mia, the letter's attached. We're going to read it. So they're quoting her because her letter is attached. Ew. Just... ugh. And with the love and support of his family, Duggar will lead a productive and lawful life following any sentence imposed by this court. As Congress and the Supreme Court acknowledge, this court is charged. Chat, you are making me laugh. I saw somebody asked if Viv wrote this. Thank you so much. As Congress and the Supreme Court acknowledge, this court is charged with the responsibility of evaluating Duggar as an individual and crafting the appropriate sentence tailored particularly to him. As the federal government pointed out, you can tailor it specifically to him and his past acts that have been proven in a court of law. Oh, here's a kicker. Thus, while he maintains his innocence and intends to exercise his right to an appeal, which is his constitutional and legal right, he has the right. Duggar accepts that the crime for which he is being sentenced is serious, and this court must impose punishment. But in crafting that punishment, Duggar asks that the court consider this crime within its proper context to consider the person Duggar really is. I also hope that this court consider the person Duggar really is. I think Duggar's lawyers and me might differ on what that means. Jasmine, I think she means daddy, like from the kid's perspective, not her own, but she's writing it in the first person. We'll read the letter and we'll see the context. But I get it, but it is against this backdrop that Duggar respectfully requests that this court sentence him to 60 months imprisonment. This court has a minimum and a maximum sentence. The court cannot sentence him below 5 years. The court cannot sentence him more than 20 years. The court has some discretion in the middle. As evidenced by his perfect performance on pretrial bond, no matter what sentence is ultimately imposed, this is a defendant who will never find himself before this or any other court ever again, and a defendant who will abide by whatever conditions of supervised release this court imposes. They go through the procedural background. They go through the legal standard on sentencing. The judge has some discretion within the guidelines. They go through the role of the advisory sentencing guidelines in the PSR. They talk about why they have objections to the sentencing enhancements and the enhancement distribution. They talk about the nature of the images. They talk about the uncharged conduct. There should not be an enhancement for Duggar's uncharged alleged conduct as a child. He was in his late teens. I don't consider late teens to be... When we refer to child in court, late teens is generally a teen or young adult. They're going to refer to him as a child to say, Your Honor, he was a child. He was only a lad, Your Honor. And the prosecution's going to be like, he was technically a minor, but also the minors he abused were younger minors and some very young. So negative. Motion for downward variance is a matter of law. This court must make an individual assessment. So please see that he is a 34-year-old man who is recognized by those who know him best as a man deeply devoted to his family, his faith, and those around him. They talk about where he was born, where he has spent his entire life, that he maintains an extremely close bond with his parents and siblings. All of them? I have questions. Indeed, his prior to his arrest in this case, Duggar and his wife and children were residing at his parents' home while his family's home was undergoing renovations. Duggar and his wife Anna married in 2008, and they are profoundly committed to one another. She did put a monitoring software on his computer. I don't doubt that they're committed. I don't doubt that she's committed, I should say. But I do not follow the Duggars closely. They are profoundly committed to one another and providing their 7 children with a safe and caring home. By any measure, Duggar's childhood was atypical. As a child, Duggar and his family had the unique experience of being thrust into the spotlight from the success of their reality show, 17 Kids and Counting, which became 18 Kids and Counting, and ultimately 19 Kids and Counting. The truth is, this presents challenges for Duggar. It was hard growing up in front of television cameras and being recognized virtually everywhere he went in public. Indeed, one can hardly imagine the challenges associated with being a child whose everyday life is viewed in public and, in certain instances, being criticized by the media and complete strangers. Even into early adulthood, living under the microscope and being judged and criticized by the media took a toll on Duggar. I understand that as a child, that was not his choice. That was his family's choice. I don't know how the two are connected when it comes to this type of crime. Just going to leave that there. The media, being criticized by the media took its toll on Duggar and certainly complicated aspects of everyday life for him and his family. Notwithstanding this atypical life, he's worked hard to become his own man, separate and apart from the fleeting fame that comes from starring in a reality television show. Throughout his life, Duggar has worked extremely hard to provide for his family. Following in his father's footsteps, he worked in auto sales and real estate investment. Anna describes her husband as considerate, respectful, quick to forgive, patient, and genuinely the kindest person I know. If he was respectful of you, he would not be viewing illicit images of children. She states that he is an engaged dad who gladly throws a football with his sons, listens to our daughter play a new song that they've learned on the piano, helps answer homework question, or lends a hand sweeping up spilled crackers. That's just parenting, though. He is kind, loving, supportive, and a caring father and husband. His primary focus in life. His primary focus in life is to be a caring father and husband. And Anna is not alone in her reflections of the man Duggar is. Instead, her observations are corroborated by many of other letters submitted to this court for consideration. Nicole Burress, B-U-R-R-E-S-S, shares, quote, Josh's life pursuit has been raising a delightful family, and he has been diligent to raise extraordinary children, and his children are deeply grieved by his absence. They may well be, but he's convicted of things involving children. So, as Rafael Perez frames it, when you see the family together, you witness the genuine love they share for one another. The kids roaming about and playing, but always returning to their daddy for guidance, comfort, and love. And his father explains that his son-in-law is truly a fantastic daddy. Do they all call him daddy? It's just odd to me when adults, even referring to the kids, say daddy instead of dad. I don't know why it hits me sideways, but it hits me sideways that they don't say he's a fantastic father or a fantastic dad. This is a letter from Anna's father to the court. Maybe it's just me. It hits me weird. So, anyway. Duggar's mother, Michelle, notes Joshua is a loving and patient man, striving to be a blessing and provide for his family. He has also spent quality time with his wife and children, learning life skills together and going on family outings. She's describing parenting. Side by side, Joshua and his family have built forts, learned how to work on bicycles and vehicles, gone camping, hiked, fished, and played countless games and sports together. In addition to being a wonderful father and husband, what stands out about Duggar is the extent to which he has selflessly for decades served others, not only financially, but with actual boots on the ground. This could backfire. Depending on the court and the judge, this type of overwrought, he's a dedicated family man, could backfire. It could be okay, your family needs you and you made this choice, which clearly shows that you are not capable of making choices. So you're going to need a timeout in federal prison for more than 5 years. This could work. Anna notes that Duggar is a man who frequently volunteers. She explains that a close friend of theirs passed away 4 years ago, and Duggar decided to financially support this widow and their young children, completely beyond the public's view, despite living a life largely in the public spotlight. Anna explains for the past 4 years, Joshua has quietly and faithfully made significant financial contributions to meet their needs. This was not because we have excess income, but because Joshua has a compassionate heart. And he's willing to make personal sacrifices for the benefit of others. He could have sacrificed the desire to look at this kind of shit on the computer and spent that money on some therapy to maybe deal with that, perhaps. The receipt of those contributions has shared with the undersigned counsel the profound impact Duggar's generosity had on her life. This reflects who Duggar really is, no matter how strangers or the government choose to portray him. Oh, no, you didn't. The government is not choosing to portray him in any way other than what has been proven in court to a jury. Y'all, I can't go DEFCON deep red. We can't get redder. I'm sorry. Other than to turn off my own light and look like I'm talking to you from the Death Star. I can't go redder. For Duggar, generosity comes naturally and not only in the form of money. As Pastor David Waller explains, it was Joshua Duggar who offered to help me finish a large deck project for our in-laws, giving of his time and money during Christmas week to complete a large deck with a handicap accessible ramp. LeCount RHOBH, the gentleman with whom Duggar resided while on pretrial bond, noted that this is, by the way, a very close friend of his father. In every situation, Duggar always looked for ways to be helpful. He had nothing else to do, though. He couldn't go on the internet at all and was forced to stay at home. So what else was he going to do? On his own accord, he would see a situation that needed some help and would voluntarily pitch in to try to help me fix it. His mother explains Joshua has a tender heart and he is compassionate towards others. If someone is having a difficult time, he is one of the first to try to encourage or try to help them in a tangible way. You guys are like, just go DEFCON Death Star. Okay, I worry about DEFCON. We've never done a DEFCON Death Star. Let's see. Let's see what happens. I will see if my light will cooperate. Of course, it cooperates immediately. We've gone DEFCON full fuckery, and now I'm just coming to you from the Death Star. That's just what's happening. And then I will have to turn my light back on in a minute. But for now, we are DEFCON Death Star. Is someone else's intellectual property. Where were we? His mother explains Joshua has a tender heart and is compassionate towards others. If someone is having a difficult time, he's one of the first to encourage or try to help them in a tangible way. He and his wife and children have helped many others by doing cleaning and repair projects and lending a helping hand. Cool, but also. Federal courts routinely recognize a defendant's record of charity and benevolence as a warranting to reduce a sentence. And then they go into the case. Oh, this is the Warner case. We're just going to read this because perhaps most notably, the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit affirmed the probation sentence of H. Ty Warner, the billionaire creator of Beanie Babies. Affirmed the probation sentence that H. Ty Warner received, the creator of Beanie Babies, received for evading a $5.6 million in federal taxes by hiding assets in a Swiss bank account. There is a difference between tax evasion and illicit images of children, though. The sentencing court acknowledged Warner's private acts of kindness, generosity, and benevolence. The crimes are different, though. We're just gonna go there. Every letter submitted to this court for this court's consideration makes clear that Duggar cares deeply for his wife and children. While the reality that Duggar is going to be sentenced to federal prison is undoubtedly frightening for Duggar himself, it has paralyzed his family with fear. As Anna explains, my children and I rely on Joshua for financial, emotional, and physical support. David Waller notes that he heard Duggar's children cry themselves to sleep, wanting their daddy to be home. I don't doubt that, and I feel terribly how his choices have impacted his children. And respectfully ask this court to consider how much his wife and 7 children need him in their lives. The court's going to consider that Josh could have considered that, though. He could have made that consideration. This was not a crime of opportunity. This was a planned crime. Planned crime. To be nearby for visits, that's probably the most reasonable thing to ask, is that he's not sentenced to a federal prison across the country so his kids can actually see him. Be accessible for communication and brought back home to provide not just financially, but spiritual guidance for his family. Maybe that's not the direction we need to go on. Stated simply, any punishment imposed on Duggar is also a punishment imposed on his family. Yes, but those are through no one's choices but his own. And if he was so dedicated and committed to his family, I could see the court saying, but then why didn't he consider that when looking at these images of children? And I can very, very much see this backfire. We're going to scoot past the law about federal courts recognizing the court's ability to depart. The court can't go below. We're not going to go through the nature and circumstances of the offense. They say that it wasn't me. The court has to impose at least a minimum of 5 years. So they're asking for the minimum of 5 years. They still have their motion to dismiss that's pending. They're talking about the different kinds of sentences. And they say, while the law requires Duggar to be sentenced for a term of imprisonment, he submits that conditions of release following any term of custodial imprisonment imposed in this case can supplement any need for a more lengthy sentence. So they're saying 5 years, please just 5 years, and then we can impose other options for him. So you can monitor his release, take away his internet. You can do all these different things, but please, after 5 years, just release him. So that's their argument there. And then they argue that there are cases that are similar, in detail, that there are cases that are similar where sentencing has been less. Conclusion, as the old adage goes, justice must be tempered with mercy. Duggar accepts that he is before this court for sentencing for a serious crime, and this court must impose a penalty. That is justice. But Duggar also appeals to this court's discretion. I should have just read this paragraph. I wouldn't be so mad. But Duggar also appeals to this court's discretion to temper that justice with mercy. If ever there were a defendant standing before this court who is committed to never finding himself anywhere close to this situation again, it is Duggar. As he moves forward into the next chapter of his life, Duggar continues to have so much good to offer the world. Those words are catching in my chest. We ask that this court give him that opportunity for the reasons set forth in the PSR. I mean, he's only in his 30s, even 20 years, he can still get out and have a life. For all the reasons set forth in the PSR in this memorandum and in the numerous letters submitted to this court, Duggar asked the court to impose a sentence of 60 months, followed by a term of supervised release. I think it'll be more than that. I don't think it'll be 20, but I think it'll be more than that. Okay. I am going back from DEF CON Death Star because I want to be able to see y'all and I want to be able to see me. And also we're going to have to finish reading these letters. So I will be looking for the next letter. We're not going to go through all of them. There are quite a lot of them, but once I emerge from the Death Star, we will go through a few of these. Anna Duggar's first, that is his wife's. We're going to go through that one first. And once my light decides that it's going to let me reconnect, then we will move on. I'm glad this is not handwritten. It makes it easier for read. Your Honor, I'm writing regarding my husband, Joshua Duggar, who will come before you for sentencing. As his spouse of more than 13 years, thank you for taking the time to allow me to share about the man I know and love. Joshua and I met nearly 16 years ago. Our friendship grew over the next 2 years. I saw what I know to be even more true today, that Joshua is considerate, respectful, quick to forgive, patient, and genuinely the kindest person I know. Didn't he admit to cheating on his wife, though? I mean, not that that is a crime, not a crime, but also not respectful. Just, when we get to respectful, that's not in my realm of respect or genuine kindness. But okay, this is her perception of her husband, said to his sentencing judge, that is going to determine his fate, that matters for her and her financial security and for their children's future. I understand that she thinks that this is what is best. I have questions, but okay. We were happily married September 26, 2008. During our first years of marriage, Joshua and I enjoyed working together at our used car lot in Springdale. There, I admired my husband's diligence in his work and also his perspective. We're exiting the Death Star. As we're going to struggle to adjust, but we're exiting the Death Star. The people are more important than a quick sale. Joshua would often spend hours of his day chatting with and listening to various homeless people who would pass by on the sidewalk. And many of our customers also became our friends. It didn't matter who you are or where you came from. Joshua cared for each person because they are created in the image of God, and that is what determines their value, not social status. Joshua has worked hard to provide for me and our now 7 children, but the happiest part of the day by far is when Daddy comes home from work and his cheerful voice fills the house. Hey guys, how's it going? Okay, context made this sentence not as creepy as it read earlier. What did you learn about in school today? Are usually the conversation starters in between greeting each of our children. Joshua is an engaged dad who gladly throws the football. We heard all of this up above. My children and I rely on him financially, emotionally, and physically for support. Many others depend on him too. He volunteers his time. 4 years ago, one of our good friends passed. This talks about them contributing to the widow. Josh embodies the quote from Ronald Reagan: "There is no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit." Joshua is quick to step in and do whatever he can to be a team builder and help others accomplish their goals without ever needing to receive recognition and praise. Okay. Joshua sees the best in people and is willing to walk alongside them to help make their dreams a reality. Several years ago, a man named Tommy stopped by the car lot. It was shortly after a snowfall. Tommy was looking for work and asked if he could earn some extra cash by doing a quick wash on each of the cars in the lot. Joshua quickly noticed how thorough Tommy was and asked if he'd be willing to come back each week to wash our cars. Over time, Joshua offered to help Tommy to get set up in business and recommend some of our car dealer friends to use his washing services as well. Before long, with Joshua's help, Tommy was able to purchase a truck and some equipment of his own. He hired a few employees and was soon running a successful small business. It felt good knowing my husband saw something in Tommy and that he had inspired and enabled him to go for the opportunity to better provide for his family as a small business owner. We continued to use Tommy's washing services for many years. Okay. Thank you, Your Honor, for taking these thoughts into consideration. Joshua is surrounded by people who will encourage him to continue to become the best man, father, and employer he can be. Okay. I ask you to consider reuniting us as a family again soon. I understand the seriousness of this matter. However, I respectfully ask you take this letter into consideration. The judge will read it and take it into consideration. It just might not go the way they want it to go. This is a family, it seems like a family friend. We are neighbors of the Duggar family, and our back goat pasture adjoins their cow field. Yep. Well, some of these letters are annoying. I love everything about that sentence. I'm not mad at that at all. I'm not mad at that at all. Our back goat pasture adjoins their cow field. That's what I need. In our little town, the entire Duggar family is well known for being service focused. Though they don't brag about their service, we often see it after a national disaster. The Duggar family, including Joshua, quietly step in and help those in need. Wonderful. When there was a tornado in Joplin, Missouri, Joshua went to help out. He has traveled internationally to serve poor and needed communities. However, his service isn't limited to tornadoes in third world countries. He quietly helps families in a myriad of ways. And then it goes on to talk about his service. Talk about her getting COVID in the early 2000s. That's a long letter. Thank you for your thoughts, Nicole. This is from, I don't know who Beverly is. Beverly writing concerning Josh. A lot of these are going to talk about his service and charity and the help that he's provided to people. This is from Fair Park Baptist Church. This is from it looks like another family friend, Michael Keller. Volunteer in the prisons in Florida for over 25 years. I am Anna Duggar's father. My wife and I have been married for over 41 years. I have known Josh Duggar for... Oh! We pinged. I tried to make the lights flash when it binged. What do you guys think? Is it too much? Is it too much? Is it too much if the lights flash when it bings? Is it too extra? It's not too extra. I love it. It binged and the lights flashed. Thank you all. 339. Y'all, thank you. We're going to take a break from this and celebrate the fact that it bings because it binged. Is it too much? Is it too much? No, it binged. We're going to celebrate. It binged. Yay. Oh, it binged. Move your head. Ah! Do we love the flash? We love the flash. Not too extra. I mean, I'm too extra. And I'm going to just embrace Peter Mond's be too much. And we're going to be too much. I love the flash too. We're just going to do it. Then there's a visual. If you can't hear the bing, because the bing is low, I've been trying to turn it up. The bing doesn't have its own mic, but we have the flash. So we have like a visual. All right, let's look at what his father-in-law has to say about him. I've known Josh Duggar for over 14 years. I've spent time watching Josh's character over the years. He is kind, gentle, and polite to everyone I've seen him in contact with. Okay, I've never once seen him blow up in anger. Great. That doesn't really go to what he's being charged with here. This is from his mom. Does anyone know how old Michelle Duggar is? Because she signed her I with a heart. Y'all, I'm trying, but this shit's killing me. She has over 19 children. She can't be 12 years old. But did we know that this was a thing? I didn't know that this was a thing. Y'all, this is to the judge, the federal judge that is sentencing her son to federal prison for viewing illicit images of children and possessing illicit images of children. And what the fuck? I have so many questions. Tally Monster said, I knew it was a thing. I did not know that this was a thing. This is not this. I don't want to make fun because again, I am concerned for this human and I don't want to make fun out of concern. And I feel like this is Natalie Lawyer Chick. I agree with you. I feel like this goes a little bit beyond this document, and this is her not being allowed to be a mature woman. I have concerns. It's not appropriate in federal court, but I also have concerns for this individual. So I'm just dumbfounded, but I also don't want to poke fun because I worry that this is that there are larger issues here. So yes, it's just yes, Natalie, yes, yes, because you're insightful and you know all the things. This makes me sad. It's also not appropriate. It's federal court. I mean, it's like now is not the time for this. Your Honor, hello. I'm writing this letter in regards to sentencing my son, Joshua Duggar. My heart is here. My heart is to share some things about Joshua's character that may not be fully known to this court. The court knows some things. It is my sincere hope. Thank you, Paula. I appreciate it. I should have looked on celebrityfamousbirthdays.com. I'll do that in a minute. It is my sincere hope that these things are taken into consideration as a fair and just sentence is determined. I'm sure the sentence will be fair and just. Leading up to this sentencing day, I want to make clear that Joshua has friends and family who will love and support him in his abilities to succeed as a husband, father, business owner, and man, both now and in the future. Joshua has a tender heart and he is compassionate towards others. If someone is having a difficult time, he is one of the first to encourage or try to help them in a tangible way. Then somebody could have maybe helped him because these are choices. He and his wife and children have helped many others by doing cleaning and repair projects and lending a helping hand. I don't doubt that that's true, though. Joshua has always been a positive and upbeat person. He is wise financially, saving money for the future and purporting not to go into debt and purposing not to go into debt. Great. If he is not going into debt, then his family should be good while he is in federal prison. Good. He has been financially wise. His family should then be okay as he goes to federal prison for probably 8 to 12 years. He is a good provider for his family, working diligently and thinking of creative ways to support and take care of his wife and children. He is also generous and shares his resources with others in need. One example of his heart to help others is that Joshua has been giving financial assistance to a widow friend of ours for several years. That's great. That's very kind, but on a personal level, Joshua is an organized and diligent individual. He's also apparently very good with computers. I'm sorry, the snark is not appropriate. Apologies. He has set a good example of applying himself eagerly to his work and in the many other responsibilities that he carries as a husband and a father. He is a loving and patient man, striving to be a blessing and provide for his family. He has also spent quality time with his wife and children, learning life skills together and going on family outings. That's just parenting, though. Side by side, Joshua and his family have built forts. We read that earlier. As I look to his return, I stand ready to offer my continued love and encouragement to Joshua and his family for their success in the future together! Exclamation point. We ask that he would be reunited with his wife and family in a timely manner. What do you consider timely? Because the options are between 5 and 20 years. Thank you, Your Honor, for taking these thoughts into consideration. We implore your wisdom for a just decision in this matter. Thank you for your time. Here's why I get mad, though. After reading everything I've read with the more information that is available, I want to know who protected his sisters. I have questions. So this is Rafael Perez. This is another member of the community. I'm going to look and see if there's any others. Some people put their addresses on these, which makes me nervous. So I'm going to swoop through these. there's one from the individual he stayed with during his home detention pending trial, who had great things to say about him. So interesting, though. He said, Joshua displayed a great amount of patience and kindness as he interacted with his wife and children. During their visits, I would see him playing games, reading a book, constructing Legos, playing basketball, throwing a football, or taking walks. He displayed a great deal of care and consideration as he interacted with them. He would patiently instruct his children, for example, when it was time to clean up toys or tidy up an area, by encouraging and walking through the process with them, by showing by example what he wanted them to do, and patiently following through until the task was completed. Okay. It was interesting to see Joshua always seemed to have a good attitude throughout the discouraging circumstances he was facing. Interesting. His demeanor and interactions with us was always respectful. Great. In every situation, he was looking for a way to be helpful. Okay. This next one is from Samuel Waller, who they know from the community. A financial advisor and city council member in Tawnyton, Arkansas, where his hobby farm is near Duggar's families. They attended men's Bible study conferences together, and he has a lot to say about Duggar's heart and the fact that as a father of 7, a loving husband, and an outgoing friend, an outspoken Christian, a man who is always willing to help out others and extended them a second chance and a life of purpose, even though it cost him everything. Please show compassion as you determine your sentence. I think we're going to see him determine that this was a choice. This was a planned crime. This was not a crime of opportunity. And that the sentence will probably be between, I think 8 to 12 is reasonable. 15 is optimistic, but I think 8 to 12 is reasonable. I would be very disappointed with 5. Please read any letters from the Bates family. I don't see any letters from the Bates family. I see Samuel Waller. I think I read everybody. Samuel Waller, Timothy Burris. I will swoop through again, but I didn't see any. LeCount Reber, Rafael Perez, Michelle Duggar, which we read. The father-in-law, the pastor, David Waller, let's see, Beverly, I can't read her handwriting, but it's not Bates, because that would have been readable. Nicole Burris, and let's see, Anna Duggar. That's it. I don't see any from the Bates family. So thank you. I am going, after we've read that, y'all, it's time for that last letter claims he was framed. I mean, that's not going to help either, because the judge is going to be like, I sat through this whole trial. So I sat through that whole trial. Let me see real quick. The one from Timothy Burris. It's interesting. There's 2 from his family, but they didn't put them together. Let's see. Let's see. This is a very long letter. I will read this, but he does say Josh didn't choose this life for his family, and he certainly didn't anticipate these long-reaching consequences of notoriety. However, he continued in the public lifestyle so that he could extend a biblical message of hope to others. He doesn't claim that his family is perfect. In fact, he's willing to publicly admit to past sins and errors, yet he shares his struggles and overcoming, and has ministered to countless others throughout that, men who have battled in the same sins that Joshua has admitted to, and marriages that have been devastated by errors. Have found encouragement by Joshua's commitment to improving himself in his marriage. He believes that authentically sharing his life and encouraging others is worth the sacrifice of his privacy. So it would be interesting to see. But Josh says he doesn't do it. So I think that was part of the letter. I'm not surprised. There's definitely been some of that in the defense attorney letters. So anyway, let us get to questions. I have questions. You have questions. We have questions. And during questions, we are going to talk, Depp heard a little bit and then questions. So Depp heard resumes on Monday. Here's what I'm looking at seeing. And this Duggar went longer than I anticipated, but I was so flabbergasted by some of the defense motion that we couldn't stop. Here's what I'm anticipating with Depp Heard next week. I think we will have at least a half a day on Monday of Amber Heard on direct. We ended with Australia. There are still incidents I think she will talk about after. I want to see if the defense or her attorneys, if Heard's attorneys, will bring up the audio, will bring up her admitting to hitting him other than in the audio, not in the staircase incident, if they will try to get out ahead of some of these issues. I don't know if they will, but that's what I'm looking for on Monday in the rest of direct examination. And then we will get into the cross-examination, which I think will be a day and a half or 2 days, maybe. I can't anticipate it being much longer than that because they still have to account for time for their rebuttal witnesses. The attorneys have a certain amount of time left. I wrote it down. Hold on. Where's my trial notebook? Here it is. I wrote it down. I'm going to tell you how much time the lawyers have left because these are the hours in court. Again, they are extending court by an hour. So court will start at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 8 a.m. for us. So I will populate it for 7:50 a.m. and start about 10 minutes before court and talk about it. So the case is going to be to the jury by Memorial Day. That means this case is going to the jury on Friday. Closing arguments will be done. Jury instructions will be read. The jury will get the case. That does not mean they will have time to deliberate on Friday. I don't think that they will. Maybe a little bit. I think this jury could reasonably take 3 to 6 days. Selfishly, I'm hoping on the longer end of that because I will be out unavailable on a family vacation after Memorial Day, but then I will be back the following Monday. So if they only have 4 days that week, I think deliberations could take all 4 days. So maybe. So they won't be deliberating Monday, and I think they'll be deliberating after that. So court will go starting at 9 a.m. All these times I'm talking about are in Eastern Standard Time. Court will start at 9. Morning break will be between 10:30 and 10:45. Lunch will be 12:30 to 1:30. Noon break will be 3:15 to 3:30-ish. Break for the day will be at 5 or 5:30. The plaintiffs have 26 hours and 9 minutes left. Depp's team. Heard's team has 24 hours and 44 minutes left. And that should get us to the end of witness testimony. So that's what I'm looking for in the direct. They have not addressed a lot of the audio, and I'm very surprised that they have not addressed the audio. The media coverage during this dark week has been very interesting. Like The Guardian going off on TikTokers and streamers and Law and Lumber is just kind of wild to me. I don't think it's warranted with regard to Law and Lumber. I also think they're trying to lump in, but not specifically besmirching the lawyers that are involved in coverage of the case. They're making examples, but still. But what's very interesting to me is how this week has turned, and the headlines have been very much society is beating up on Amber Heard. I think her PR person is probably working overtime, despite deleting all of his socials. All. After allegations came out that he had been inappropriate and removed from a dating app. Those are allegations that are on the internet. There are some screenshots of conversation, but that is it. That is allegations. Nothing has been proven. Those are circulating. The thing that raised my eyebrow on that was that he deleted all his socials after that came forward. And I was like, but why would you delete your socials? You're a crisis PR person. Doesn't that make it more of a circus? But I think that they are working their media connections hard. If you follow me on Twitter, you will see that I was interested to note that the new PR person that is representing Amber Heard in this case and working this week, working the headlines this week, worked for Ryan Kavanaugh's previous company, Relativity, which I thought was very interesting. And so I gave kind of a Twitter thread of that with the articles that connected to that. Ryan Kavanaugh, as you know, is someone we're very interested in covering, as he is suing Ethan Klein from H3H3 over defamation for Ethan reporting on an article. That's not defamatory. So with that, what comes next week in trial? We are going to see Amber Heard probably on the stand through at least Wednesday, which only leaves one more day for witnesses, and we will see who the defense calls on Thursday. And then the court is dark on Friday. I don't know if the court will extend the court week on Friday. I don't think they will. They said they're extending on the 27th. I don't think they'll extend next week. I think we'll be Monday through Thursday next week. And I think we'll get into the additional witnesses. We're already seeing reports, which I'm sure Amber Heard's PR person was telling them who they anticipate calling. I don't know if they will call all of those people, but maybe they will. So we will see if an ex of Johnny Depp gets called. The ex is, it seems, going to be talking about an incident maybe 25 years ago. If you are trying to show that someone has a pattern of bad acts, perhaps, or has done things like this before, and the only thing you're bringing into court is 25 years ago, it's probably going to make the jury go, nothing else though, because that's strange. We will see what comes up on cross-examination with regard to Kate Moss. We will see if the door has been opened to talk about past acts in Amber Heard's past, where she has alleged to have been violent in a relationship. And with that, I get asked a lot, who is winning so far? If it feels like Depp's team is ahead in your mental calculations, it's because his team's the only team that's done yet. So we are not to the point where I can say who's doing better. Depp's team seems to be doing better. They've had all their witnesses in. We haven't had all of Heard's witnesses in. Something might come up and we go, oh, there's that. I'm not optimistic about that happening, but it could. I still think this is a difficult case. I think Depp's strongest path to a win is the headline that alleges sexual violence. I think that headline is much more specific than the broad and more generic domestic abuse. I hate to say generic in a way that it's not meant to be derogatory or minimizing, but it's a much broader term talking about all manner of abuse, not just physical abuse. It's talking about all sorts of things. And the jury could listen to the audio and say, yeah, these fights are abusive between the two. They might be able to get there. I can see that. But that headline is very specific. And if they don't believe her or find that she has lied to them on the stand or said things that aren't true, then they can discount her testimony. And there's not going to be anything else that backs up that claim that seemingly has never been made before. I think the headline is the strongest argument. I am very, very, very surprised that Heard's team even admitted into evidence allegations of sexual violence. I thought the smarter play would be to say that that headline has nothing to do with Johnny Depp. The headline was not written by her. The article was, and she has never made those allegations against Depp. She was talking about college, which if you read the article, it seems to follow that that headline could be argued to be about something else. But she then made those allegations with her whole chest. And I think it's going to be very hard for her team to back away from she didn't write the headline when she is in court saying, no, I said what I said. This is what happened. And I am now making an accusation of that type of horrific violence. Sandy, she said she wrote the op-ed. There is still argument about who wrote the headline for the digital, because I think there is a legal argument that she didn't write the headline for the digital. I think that argument is gone now. I think it was a very technical and good argument. I think that argument, that the shit's out of the horse on that one. The turd is on the bed with that argument. It is gone because she's now made those allegations. So there's no backtracking the argument to say, I'm not alleging this as to Johnny Depp. I didn't write it, because she's made the allegation on the stand. So now that the allegation's made on the stand, they're like, see, she's alleging this to him. Of course, that's what she meant in the article. That's the defamation by implication. And I think that's where she loses this case. If she is going to lose this case, she is going to lose this case on the retweet of the digital article and the digital article. That's where she loses. If she's going to win, I think both of them lose, because I think after her performance on the stand, they are going to look at Depp's lawyer's statements that part of what she said was a hoax. And they're going to say, look, some of this stuff is so big fish story that's not defamatory. And so I think if Depp loses, everyone loses. I think that if Depp wins on the headline, not on the print article. And I can see the jury making the decision between the two. I really, really can. So with that, when the jury gets the case, what will happen is that they will either do the jury instructions before or after. I will be intensely interested in those, and we will probably break them down again a separate time. I will be very interested to see if there's a limited jury instruction saying that one side has withheld evidence from the other. I'm interested in what the jury instructions will be. If those end up on the interwebs before the case, I will cover them. The jury instructions are going to be very interesting to me, and I hope that I can make them interesting to us. Jury instructions matter. If not, we'll cover it. The judge will read them out in court to the entire jury, and then they will argue, or they will argue first and then instruct. I prefer that you read the jury instructions first and then argue, but the judge might have their own procedure, and sometime they can do the argument first and then the instructions. Not my preference. So with that, the jury will then get the case and start deliberating. In Virginia, I do not know if the judge will have them deliberate over the weekend. I imagine even if that's the normal practice in Virginia, which I'll need to ask Rob from Law and Lumber, because that's where he practices. Even if it's their normal practice to have the jury deliberate over the weekend, I imagine over the 3-day weekend that they will not. So with that, it is time that we get to questions. I know we talked about it briefly, but those are my thoughts as we get into Monday. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions. So we are going to talk about much more. We are going to talk about this much more in the way of your questions. So with that, let's just get to your questions, because that's my favorite part. I mean, obviously I love talking a lot. I talk a lot. I talk a lot, but you know, I have questions, you have questions, we have questions. We all have questions, and the questions can be about anything we've covered tonight. Question: can you explain how and why Whitney can testify even without the deposition for JD's side? That seems unfair. I don't know if they can or cannot. They say they intend to call her. That is what the media is reporting. Someone has told the media that, but I will believe it when I see it. And the judge could limit that testimony to certain things. So until we see it, I don't know how the judge is going to address it, but we do know that this witness was objected to for not finishing their deposition, and the deadline for discovery is done. So the judge could say they can only testify about these very narrow things and try to rein them in, but we'll see. I also think Depp's team is good enough to think on their feet. Look, I come from the criminal world. Natalie Lawyer Chick is there too. We worked in criminal. Depositions didn't happen. You get witness statements sometimes. And when defense has witnesses, sometimes you wouldn't even get that. And you would just have to ask questions about what was just said because it's a different procedure. These attorneys are capable of asking questions most of the time. So I'm not sure what the judge will do. The judge could limit the testimony. The judge could not allow the witness to testify. This could be dealt with in hearings in court. We will just have to wait and see. Pocket Angie Tips, so good to see you, friend. What does limited jury instructions mean? I haven't heard that before this case. What does that look like? A limiting jury instruction. My voice is starting to be like, a limiting jury instruction will tell the jury, look, one side didn't do this or one side didn't do that. It will limit something for the jury. In this case, I think it'll be an evidentiary instruction saying one side didn't turn over evidence to the detriment of the other side, and it will name the sides. The defendant did not turn over evidence to the plaintiff that was in detriment to their side. I haven't looked up that instruction in Virginia yet, but it's there. Somebody's saying, I think Nate had the jury instructions. I mean, we can kind of guess at what they are, but I have not seen them on the court's. I have not seen the proposed instructions might be there, but I have not seen the final instructions. They might not be done with them yet. Let me look real quick. Let me just pull up the case. Let's pull it up. Give me 1 sec, and I'll link the court, and we'll just pull it up. We'll just do it together. Let's see. No. Let's just go to the exhibits. Plaintiff's opposition to the motion to strike. Let's see. They might have their proposed. I do not see filed jury instructions, but it doesn't mean they didn't file proposed jury instructions ages ago. The final ones are not up here, but it's not hard to guess at what some of the jury instructions will be. Some of them are pro forma jury instructions. You're going to have an instruction about evaluating witness testimony. You're going to have an instruction about defamation. You're going to have an instruction about evaluating expert witness testimony. But you might have an instruction about the evidence that limits the jury. So, question, when they approach the bench, does that stop their time? Yes, it does. Yes, it absolutely does. So I'm going to get to the super chats. Thank you for them. I'm going to get to some from the top of the show. And then now, rumors that Elon Barkin, Depp's ex, will be called to the stand to testify as Amber's witness. Is that possible? Yes. I thought they were not allowed to bring up anything related to past exes. She's on the witness list. I don't remember if there were objections to it. Let me see where. Let me just pull up and see what the objections were real quick. Are we going to do it all together? Yep. Plaintiff's objections to defendant's witness list. We'll look at it together. Let's see if we can control F ourselves into finding, wrong window. There we go. Let's see if we can find it in this document. No. All right. Oh, well, it's not hard. It's right here. Emily, just look at the document. Keep reading, girl. Keep reading. It's right there. Elon Barkin, objection. Ms. Barkin's testimony should be excluded in its entirety for the reasons set forth in Depp's pending motion in limine number 13, which is going to go into past relationship. Where is the motion in limine number 13? See, this is the problem that I have to cross-reference. But they objected to it being on the witness list, and that would have been ruled on. That motion in limine would have been ruled on by the court at some point so that they would know whether this individual can be called or not. Have I seen a ruling on the motions in limine? Order to admit. I don't think I saw a ruling on the motions in limine. These would be handled in court, and not all of the rulings the court does have been distilled into writing here. They would have the transcripts for it, but I did not see any of those here. So those are the earlier orders. Those are the objections. Yeah, I didn't see any of those publicly available. So some of those would have been done by the court and counsel. That's what they've been doing on Friday. Kevin Kimball, good to see you. Congratulations on your verification. Thank you. Did you see my message on Insta about Kat Tenbarge's article, or see it yourself? Is it the one, Kevin, is it the one she shared on Twitter today? I saw that one was shared on Twitter today. I haven't had a chance to read it, but let me look at Insta real quick and see if it's the same one I'm thinking of. Let me just go to it. Oh my God, my DMs are so crazy. I don't say that out of anything other than it is hard for me to find things. So I will go search through and see if it's the same one. The one I saw was the one on her Twitter. I'll show you which one I was thinking of. Let's see. Cat, where is Cat? So let's see. This is the one I saw from, and I didn't read all of it. Probably because of this. Let's see. Jacob 15 was making YouTube videos about the game Elden Ring when he said a video about a different topic, the trial in actor Johnny Depp's defamation suit against his ex-wife, popped up in the platform's recommended video feed. He spoke on the condition of his last name being withheld because he's 15. This is shit you maybe don't want your 15-year-old going through. I I cannot explain Melody. We talked about this early at the top of the show. I can't explain it. I haven't dove into it yet. The verdict was a while ago. Today was the sentencing. Let's see. Jacob, who spoke on the condition his last name be withheld, said he noticed that the video had millions of views, but the channel it came from had barely any subscribers. His own videos were only getting a few hundred views. So he decided to try and make a video about the celebrity defamation case instead within a week. His new content, often short compilations of clips from the trial set to royalty-free music, had over 10 million views. I saw this Amber Heard trial and I saw how people were blowing up off of it. So I decided, you know what? I can probably try this too. I just started uploading on it and it worked. And that's, again, people are going to lean into the algorithm interest. I get that. Few, if any, other topics have captivated social media like the Depp Heard trial. That's fair. All 6 creators are leaning into the wave of justice for Depp. So it's talking about a wide variety of creators from makeup artists, comedians, true crime podcasters, and K-pop fans, musicians, movie reviewers, and more are pivoting to cover the trial. So it sounds like channels that don't normally do this kind of coverage are covering it. Okay. Let's see. That's about the suit. Sophie, a TikToker creator and artist, made a viral pro-Depp video, said taking Depp's side is the popular opinion on social media to the point where those who are pro-Heard will be drowned out by opposition. It has been, I would say, about 90% positive and in favor of Mr. Depp. So are people picking a side based on popularity? Is that what's happening? Okay. I think that's the article. Cool. If stipulations were that Amber Heard couldn't be called by Depp's team, why is she calling him? What about Whitney's incomplete depo? I call shenanigans. The stipulation was that Heard could not be called during Depp's case in chief because they would call Heard. But they also have a defamation case to prove against Depp, so they can call him to talk about things that go to their cross-claim only and things they didn't cross-examine him on. So yes, they are allowed to call him, but his case goes first. So they were trying to wait to call her until her case in chief. That part's not shenanigans. What about Whitney's incomplete depo? That feels more like shenanigans, but I don't know the whole circumstances. What's your opinion about Amber Heard's testimony? I don't think it's helped her a lot so far. Please tell the bottle cap story here. No. That was a moment on Mercatus channel earlier today. A kid at my son's school, a kid at my son's school choked on my teens, middle school, on the small plastic cap on the top of a water bottle because he had the water bottle in his mouth this way and was being a junior high school student with the water bottle and choked on the water bottle cap and had to go to the hospital to have it removed. So that. You watch behavioral panel on Amber Heard's testimony, not all of it. Chase thinks Amber Heard is malingering. Dr. Curry talked about feigning. He studied malingering before, also said her sentences are like a high school kid and didn't read much. Maybe, I don't know, but Amber Heard definitely described herself as quite well read. Diana said, thank you for being an inspo. Got into law school. Diana, congratulations. I'm sorry we're celebrating like hours late, but congratulations. Yay. You're going to learn all about objection hearsay. And then in school, you're going to be able to have like the objection hearsay song in your head. You're going to be like, objection hearsay. The memes, the internet memes will be stuck in your head. Random question. Where are you from originally? I live for the way you say during. LOL, much love. I am originally from Southern California. I don't know if that's a SoCal thing. How successful can you sue someone under a conservatorship? Not very successfully, but that's why there's a bankruptcy. So, well, the bankruptcy came first, but the bankruptcy kind of operates in its own little world outside of the conservatorship. Question, I don't know where you post about things you get, but wanted to know if you like the mug. Everything tastes better with cat fur in it. I share those on Instagram. I have not shared my mail time yet. I was going to do that this weekend because I've been swamped this week, but yes, I love it. And I will be sharing it on the Instagrams, Marilyn. Thank you so much. We just picked up mail. I've got some other stuff from the PO box I need to share too, and happy to do so. Julie says, does the jury in the Johnny Depp case actually avoid saying anything about the case? it's so hard in this case. They are instructed to. They are going to have to go to lengths to do that. It is so hard in this case. When a case is so publicized like this, how can they avoid it? They're going to have to largely avoid social media, I think. So that's what I think. What are the odds we see you stream games? I'm down. I would love to stream games if I ever had time. I probably would do it not on this channel. It's just not in line with this channel. I would have to find somewhere to do that. But it's a possibility. Look, I've been enjoying this little thing. Was a sponsor on the podcast this week, but Backbone has been a ton of fun, and you can stream directly from it with like phone handheld games. It's super cool. So is that a possibility if I ever have time? Yes. Question, Elon Musk via Tesla sponsored a Johnny Depp live AMA on YouTube. No. Your thoughts when you get to Q&A. Apple Pie, that looks like a crypto scam to me. I don't think it was sponsored. We did a whole thread. Let me pull up the thread on Twitter. We did a whole thread on Twitter about it because I suspected it was scammy. And the Twitter sphere and the internet said, yep. So there were a few that pointed out, Super Cami for one, pointed out that the YouTube channel is not their actual YouTube channel, is not Johnny Depp's YouTube channel. Clearly, this is an old interview. People shared where the old interview is from, and somebody shared the website. So this is from the Zurich Film Festival, which is old. Let's see. There is also a breakdown of the website, the QR code website here. And that QR code website being a relatively new website. Somebody gave the breakdown. The tweets have gotten buried. I don't know where it was, but somebody shared that the website was not just a newer website, but like a significantly newer and routed through numerous countries' website. So it looked like a complete and absolute crypto scam. Let's see if it's under this. I do not tweet well. Don't tell Twitter. They'll revoke my things. It's the same live. Looked like some lady changed her channel name to exploit the current level of publicity around his name. Very, very possible. And then, is this the one? No, that's the other one. There was a picture of the website, but in looking at the QR coded website, it also looked like a scam. So no, Elon Musk did not sponsor an AMA. Johnny Depp was not live on YouTube. This trial, and like with anything, when you get this much publicity on something, people will do the things. I would love to see you and Hogue talk EM and explain Girardi to our sweet summer child. We are going to do that. I just don't know when. Does Amber Heard, and I will probably do it here so I can curse all the fuck I want without messing up the algorithm of his channel. He's very sweet and patient with me when I curse. Does Amber Heard's defense of reported still stand since police testimony state no crime reported by Amber Heard? I think her attorneys can reasonably argue that the reported was the TRO that she sought, even though yes, I think they can argue that with a straight face. Question, Duggar, how do those that defend in this case handle all the icky feelings? Do they seek therapy and have resources available for their own mental well-being? I feel like it would be so hard. These are private defense attorneys, so they have the option to not take the case. All attorneys, all should be in therapy. All of us need it. And there is a lot of secondary trauma that can come with working in criminal law, and everyone has to handle that their own way. I found therapy to be very, very helpful until I hit a full adrenal fatigue and burnout. But I did a TED talk about that, so I'm not going to bore you with it tonight. It's hard. There are very, very hard parts. Second hand or second degree trauma and PTSD of people who work in particularly those is very difficult. So yes, when Dr. Curry was talking about PTSD on the stand and she was talking about first responders and responder PTSD, I was like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Question, have you heard of PMP Firm 2.0? He's a criminal lawyer who was on the H3 podcast tonight. So funny. I have not, but I'll take a look. Rhonda said, I believe that in most federal guidelines for both criminal and civil, well, there's no civil crimes, but criminal, they have what is called mitigating factors and aggravating factors. and is why they mention he did not acknowledge his crime for penalties. They do have mitigation and aggravation. They do mention that he did not take responsibility. I just don't know if that is a fair aggravating factor, given that you have a constitutional right to a trial. I don't have problems with the government in this case bringing it up. I have problems with it being a thing. While I think you could use early admission as aggravation. Look, they knew what they did. They said that they were wrong. They admitted all the things. I think you could use that as mitigation. Look, they did something good. But I think using someone exercising their right to trial in aggravation doesn't sit well with me. Stephanie said, do you have any idea what it's like to grow up how he did? No, I think it's important, though it doesn't excuse his behavior. It doesn't excuse his behavior. And no, I don't know what it's like. I didn't watch 19 Kids and Counting. I don't know what it's like to grow up in the spotlight. I don't know what his experience was like. However, I don't think it mitigates the crime that he has committed here. Do you think lawyers writing this are just as disgusted as the judge reading it? It's their client. They're doing their job. And sometimes you can disconnect with, I'm doing the best for my client and my client deserves the best argument. And they do. It's just hard for me. I hope the lawyers don't really believe what they're writing. They might. Is this good legal counsel though? When it comes to Josh Duggar, his attorneys have done a very good job. I don't agree with all their arguments, but I think they have done a good job arguing. I think they've had the time and the resources to do so. I think they've brought not just all of the relevant motions, some novel motions that didn't fly, but like A for effort. I think they've done a good job of pointing out the law. I think his lawyers have done a good job. I think the facts that they're working with are not in their favor, but they have tried. Is there a chance that he avoids jail to first offender leniency? No, it's a 5-year minimum sentence. Or does that go out the window when he took it to trial? No, it's a 5-year minimum sentence no matter what. So does this verdict mean that he also has to register as a sex offender and can't go near kids? Will he not be able to go near his own? I need to take a look. The laws on CP and sex offender registration, the last time I looked in this federal context, were not super clear to me. I need to take a look at the federal guidelines on that again. It is possible, but there are exceptions with his own children, though they can say he can't be alone with his own children. But parental rights are something that are a bit more sacred than just being able to, in supervised release you can, and in supervised release after court you can, but there's other things that they can consider with that. So I would need to take a look, but it's possible. But I don't know for the CP cases. Could the age of his kids at release be considered? I don't know if it'll formally be considered, but it might be in the court's mind. R.R. Smith, would the law have, or would they investigate Duggar to see if he did more to kids than just looking at photos? Well, they dug into his past with regards to the past acts. They brought those up. Those absolutely came up. I believe they tried to interview his kids. I don't know if they were ever successful in doing forensic interviews of his own children, but there's not much more with that if nobody's complained. It's kind of, you can't just go interview all of the children in like Arkansas or elsewhere on the internet. They had all his digital evidence. If there was something in his phone that prompted another investigation, they could have done that. Oh, Crystal Farmer, thank you so much. That's a very, very kind super chat. Question: have you seen a video on Steve J. Raw YouTube channel of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard where she taunts and gaslights him? No, it's worth a watch. After trial, I will. If it isn't already in evidence, can his team still get it admitted and played for the jury? It depends on when it was recording. What are the rules bringing in evidence after trial starts? Well, you can bring in evidence at different periods of time. I imagine we'll hear new things in cross-examination of Amber Heard that her team hasn't brought up. Evidence can be admitted all throughout the trial, but it can't violate the court's previous rulings. So all those motions in limine, they would have argued over evidence. So the sides would know what comes in. So yes, it can come up. I don't know if that particular audio will, but it can, and they can play it on cross-examination, and they might be saving it for that. What if a juror gets caught online or replaced? They have alternates, and if they haven't talked to any other jurors, then they'll just get replaced with an alternate if something happens. If they've talked to other jurors, those jurors would be interviewed, and then they'll figure it out. Do we think Michelle actually wrote this, or was it a lawyer or publicist? I mean, there might have been guidance from the lawyer of these are the types of things we want to talk about, but I don't have any reason to doubt that she wrote it. Most people write their own with some kind of loose outline by the lawyer of like, these are the kind of things that help. Did all of them sit side by side and decide to write the same exact letter? This goes to the lawyer giving guidelines, which isn't inappropriate to say these are the types of things the court can consider. These are the types of things that can help. So, question, forgive me if this is dumb. No dumb questions, but can the letters be negative towards the person getting sentenced? There can be victim impact statements that come out. Those generally come in court. They can be submitted as letters, but those would generally be submitted the day of sentencing, though they can be attached to the sentencing memo. They don't need to. The pre-sentencing report will often interview individuals who might have negative things to say. So that there are other forms for that. The defense letters are generally done to support the defendant, to show why the defendant should be given leniency or a chance, to give the court a more full picture of them as a person, which is appropriate and fair to do in any case. The defense wouldn't submit negative letters, but others can in other contexts. Can you give a shout out to my BFF? His name is John Steele. Hello, John Steele. Shout out. Your BFF loves you very much and super chatted for a shout out. Thank you, Alicia. So hello. Me thinking at some point I just need a cameo. Living Sweetly said, question, as perjury is considered a criminal matter, not a civil one, how can people involved in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case be held accountable for perjury? It would have to be proven. Well, it would have to be at least consistent enough. And I have been very much about like, I will talk about any instances of perjury if they come out after the trial's over. If there are concerns about direct lies, then it would need to be reported and investigated, or sua sponte investigated by an agency in jurisdiction of Virginia, forwarded to prosecutors, and prosecutors would have to decide to prosecute it. So people involved should not try to report that unless it is the attorneys directly talking to law enforcement, which should not happen during the trial. After would be appropriate. And it would have to be very, not just brazen, but very clear perjury, and very clear perjury with a purpose. So that's generally what they'll look for. Perjury is hard. I've tried a perjury case. I've gotten a conviction on a perjury case. Perjury is difficult to prosecute, especially when it arises out of a civil context. It is unusual, but it is not impossible. Did you happen to hear the audio I text messaged you about? I have not had a chance to respond to text messages, so not yet, but this week's been busy. How does a law firm, so I will go look for it though after we wrap tonight. Excuse me says, how does the law firm escrow account work? Is there one account for all incoming fund on all cases, or is there an individual account per lawsuit? It can depend on jurisdiction, but in large matters, you generally have one account per lawsuit. And then when that one's done, another one can come in. Like the account zeroes out and then a fresh one comes in. So monies don't intermingle between clients. Sometimes with smaller cases, there can be accounts that intermingle, but with larger cases like Girardi, there should have been accounts for each of these large cases. Question, can you please stream the OJ trial with commentary this summer? I would have to go see if we can even find it. I don't know. We might do I don't know. Maybe I will take a look and see if that would even be helpful because we've all seen it. We kind of know what happened. Off topic, but I write for Destiny for Polygon. If you need any help, definitely, Jan Govit. Just DM me on Twitter. I really enjoy covering the Bungie lawsuit. It's really cool. It's a really interesting suit. And I think the Bungie lawyers did a great job writing it. So I will absolutely ask. And I will get the name of the game right as I speak about it in the future. Question, how does opening the door work? You come in like a wrecking ball. Sorry. It seems the judge said prior bad acts were inadmissible, but Amber bringing up Kate Moss opened that avenue, possibly. So opening the door generally refers to when the court has made a ruling that something's not coming in or something can't come in without something happening first. The something happening first has to happen and then the door is open. So then you can get into that area. It's like, oh, hello, behind door number 1, we have prior this. But it's not always prior bad acts. It can be other things that the judge has ruled not relevant or has ruled that they are more prejudicial than probative, meaning they don't help the jury, but they harm the person more. But things that a person brings up in testimony can definitely open the door for that topic of conversation. When someone believes the door is open and we screamed about, and you don't just start asking the questions, you generally ask the first question or ask the court if you can approach and ask if you can get into it. If the court has ruled that that is an area you can't get into, you go to the judge first and say, I believe this witness has opened the door to get into this line of questioning. This is why I believe it. And then you have a conversation at sidebar. I'm surprised that it didn't come in with Dr. Hughes. I'm still surprised. Spider Queen said, I just rewatched the opening statements of Elaine and says we'll hear the Australia recording and how Amber is stone cold sober. I mean, let's see if we hear it. She also said Amber was going to talk to us about how she carried the Milani compact, or a compact. They showed the Milani one in her purse the entirety. And she's going to talk about mixing colors and how she, covered bruises her whole relationship. So we haven't seen any of that testimony yet. We'll see. Leslie said, what do you think might have opened the door when Amber had said, my dog stepped on a bee? Ben Chu seemed chuffed. I think Ben Chu thought that was ridiculous. I don't think she opened the door about the dog. I think I think she seemed like she was trying to squeeze out a tear. But when she talked about Kate Moss, there is some reason that is significant to them that is opened. They believe a door for something. And they were like, yeah, I can't believe she did that. And then I went and found, because so many of you tagged me, thank you. It's so helpful. I went and saw Elaine's reaction to that, and she was like, so something happened. Do you have thoughts on how Amber Heard keeps calling Johnny Depp Johnny? Well, Johnny Depp called her Miss Heard. Shows a level of disrespect on Amber Heard's part, if you ask me. Jay Birdie Lewis, I don't disagree that it can be interpreted that way. I would just offer that my interpretation, and I don't know how the jury will see it, is that she is very comfortable with him and is still comfortable and familiar with him enough to call him Johnny. And that is a level of familiarity that's not distancing himself. I see Depp distancing himself from Amber, the person he was in the relationship with, by calling her Miss Heard. It is a level of distancing that I think if you've been traumatized by someone, you would want to distance. This is my speculation and opinion. I've seen people distance and just call the person the defendant and not call them by their name at all. So it's interesting to me that she still refers to him by his first name, because that would generally be something of fondness. So that's how I interpret that. And it's interesting. I wonder if the jury will notice that. Kate Moss past now allude to being talked about because Amber entered it into evidence, perhaps, but it could have opened the door for something else. Question, do you think Amber Heard will change the way she's acting on the stand? No. I don't think she can. I don't think she can. I think this is how she wants to present her case, and she's going to do it. Hi E, hi Be Your Own Strong. Unlikely, but if you were a lawyer, I mean, I am a lawyer, from either side, what would you do? How would you feel if on cross Amber Heard cracked and just said, I can't take this anymore, lied about everything? I think it would be a very interesting Legally Blonde moment. I think you look and go, what did you just say? Or, Your Honor, can we take a recess? Can we have read back from the court reporter? I don't think it will happen. I think we will see cracks, but I don't think we will see cracks like that. And I would never want to be in this kind of civil trial. Trial work, I just wanted to do criminal. This kind of civil work where you are more beholden to your clients would be very difficult for me. I want to do things the way I want to do them. I don't know if you've noticed that about me yet. I like to do things my way. Emily, do you have a Cartman? I do what I want. A little bit. I want to do things my way. So while I don't mind adhering to, ethics and rules of court and the policy positions of my office, I also don't want a client being like, what we're going to do is talk about this essay, when you're saying, no, if we don't talk about it, though, we have a better chance of winning. And the client's like, no, that's not what we're going to do. And it's like, but I'm the lawyer. And the client's like, but I'm the client. And then you do what they say. You go with them. If it's not unethical, that would be a struggle for me. Nope. I did what I want. Question, is impeachment a formal process? No, it's not like impeaching a president. It is the process of using some other thing to show that somebody is not telling the truth. It's the court version of calling someone out. It's like, it's like when your kid is asking for more dessert and they're like, but you said, and you say no. And they're like, but you said in the car on the way home from school that if I just did this, then I could have this. And now you're saying the opposite. So what I'm telling you is previously you said this, but now you're saying this. So I win. Give me my treat or whatever it is. That when you argue with your children and they use your own words against you later, that's what impeachment is like in court. It's like, oh, in court you testified to this, but previously you said this. That is the process of impeaching a witness. They can go on for more than that, but generally. Can the metadata issue be mentioned during cross? I don't see how it would be relevant as to Amber Heard, especially if the court's going to give a jury instruction letting them know about it. Mad Woman with a Box. I love all of the Doctor Who-ness of that and your pick. I love all of it. This is really off topic, and I don't want, if you don't want to discuss it, I understand. What are your thoughts on the possibility of Roe v. Wade being overturned? I've talked about that in other content. If that does happen, I will have thoughts. I will then have feelings. I will then check my feelings and read the ruling, and then I will help us all parse through the ruling. I don't do a ton of constitutional stuff, but if the opinion that we're seeing becomes formalized, my process will be, how do I think? How do I feel? I will process that, and then I will read the court ruling, trying to take my own thoughts and feelings out of it. So that's where I am on that. I've discussed my process. If it happens, I will address it. Hey Ems, hey just me. Motion for grumpy members emoji was approved a few weeks back. Oh, that's me. Yeah, I haven't yet, but that's me. We're working on something. Because there is a poo emoji in there. I have like 4 on my list that's on a post-it on my desk. How does the jury stay away from info on this case? Carefully. What do you think of Kathleen Zellner's role? I have no idea what her role is. It could just be jury consultant, but she has been admitted pro hoc vice. So it's possible we see her handle a witness. It's possible we see her on the rebuttal case when they get to bring in more witnesses that they need to. Jessica said, why would it be more beneficial to read jury instructions first? Are there cases where it would ever be better after? Personal preference. I like the jury hearing me last. Emily, it's like you're a little bit dramatic in court. Not inappropriately so, but you know, I want them to take my words on my rebuttal into the jury room. I want all of the jury instructions to go before so that I can say, as the judge explained this, as the judge explained, you need to follow these things. As the judge explained in this ruling, I don't like saying, as the judge explained, or as the judge will tell you, and as the judge will tell you here. I like them hearing from the judge and then hearing from me as I explain to them how to do the jury instructions, because the jury instructions make more sense if you hear them all together. And in my closing, I want to be able to explain and to teach how to use the jury instructions to decide the case and how to apply the facts to the jury instructions. It's easier if they've already heard all the jury instructions. So that's why I like doing it after. It also gives you a minute to sit and just like collect your thoughts and be ready to go for your closing, because the jury instructions can take 20, 30, 40 plus minutes to read, depending on the case. And so it gives you time to sit and center while the jury instructions get read. So I like doing it first. Doing it after, the jury's like already heard what you've had to say, and I don't want them to get confused about the instructions and then lose what I've told them. I want you to take my voice with you. So that's why. Personal preference. Mother of deaths. Have you seen, apparently Australia is looking at Amber Heard for getting the dogs illegally into the country and lying about it. I saw reference to it in the UK case. I have not seen, I've heard things, but I have not seen it yet. It's one of the things that's on my list to track down this weekend. I know Christopher Melcher was talking about it. Is the whole tape from Australia hearsay? Jerry J, Dr. K? Yes. They haven't testified to the tape. Jerry Judge can't testify to the tape. Jerry Judge has passed, so it can't come up. Are there parts of the tape that might not be hearsay? Yes, but then another side could argue for completeness that the whole thing can't come in. So we don't know. We will see how they parse that. But yeah, there are parts of that tape that are hearsay that shouldn't come in. It doesn't mean in a civil case the parties can't agree to let things come in. I don't know if they would. If Amber Heard is convicted in Australia court and goes to jail, would she serve time in Australia or the US? Australia. I mean, if that's even on the table, it would be in that jurisdiction, but they would have to extradite her and like drag her there. Question, how can Amber Heard have a counterclaim against Johnny Depp for statements his lawyer made? Ashley, great question. I broke that down a little bit in the case brief on this too, but they are an agent to him. So the statements that the agent made on his behalf are attributable to him is the short answer. Can you break down the lack of metadata? Thanks, JR. Yes, I can. Hold on. I'm gonna show you. I've done that. I did things. Hold on. I did things. You all, I just pulled up YouTube to go and pull up my Quick Bits channel, and there's like 14,000 of y'all watching. Hi. It's like a regular Friday Night Live, but with more friends. Don't forget to do the YouTube things. Thanks. Appreciate it. So I'm going to pull up, I've got a second channel. This is my second channel. Quick Bits. This one about sanctions talks about the metadata. It is a 16-minute video. It just breaks down me going through that ruling real quick. So it's in that quick video there where I go through the motion for sanctions. It talks about exactly what's not turned over. And that's probably the most concise way. There's evidence that they wanted that isn't turned over. It's on the Quick Bits channel. The link will be in, I'm sure the mods have already put it in. The link is also in my channel. So this is this channel that we're on now. Hey, 339. This is the legal ASMR channel that I've been meaning to get back to. And then this is the Quick Bits channel that has my shorts and the shorter videos. So the YouTube algorithm does not love it when I mix shorts and super long form content at this point, and I don't either. So I just put it over there so that people could watch the quick bits. How can Whitney testify if she didn't finish? I know we addressed that. I want to see what the court does. I just sent you a Twitter DM of the jury instruction number 37. The form jury instruction, that's probably the one about witnesses, I'm guessing. So that's probably the witness one. Thank you. PDF of jury instructions in Virginia via Rob Law and Lumber. Rob Law and Lumber is great. He says instruction 37 is the one that usually is used for defamation per se. He said this on Legal Bytes channel. Rob's very smart, and this is where he practices. So model jury instruction number 37. So these are all of the model jury instructions. Well, thank you. Credibility of witnesses is always a good one. Hold on. Where is credibility of witnesses? I love jury instructions. Look. Are we now in a part where we're talking about jury instructions? Yes. I'll go through these another day. So these are not the jury instructions agreed upon in the case. These are the model jury instructions in Virginia. So thank you, Cameron. This is great. Here's the credibility of witnesses one. You are the judge of the facts, the credibility of the witness, and the weight of their evidence. You may consider the appearance and manner of the witness on the stand. This is telling the jury how they decide things. How do you decide facts? You may consider the appearance and manner of the witness on the stand, their intelligence. Oh, that's not in the California one. That's not in the California credibility of witnesses instruction. That's interesting. Their opportunity for knowing the truth and for having observed the things about which they testified, their interest in the outcome of the case, their bias, and if any have been shown, their prior inconsistent statements, or whether they have knowingly testified untruthfully as to any matter of material fact in the case. You may not arbitrarily disregard believable testimony of a witness. However, after you have considered all the evidence in the case, you may then accept or discard all or part of the testimony of a witness as you think proper. Evaluate everything and then decide. You are entitled to use your common sense in judging any testimony. So, okay, let's go to 37. Are these by page? That's 2. Oh boy. Wait, can we control F ourselves into number 37? It's not number 41, but it's okay. Sorry. The Dave Matthews summer has kicked off and it's in my brain. Liability issues, public figure defamation per se. The issues in this case are, did the defendant make the following statement, words or statement? Is the statement about the plaintiff? Was the statement heard or seen by someone other than the plaintiff? Is the statement false? Did the defendant make the statement knowing it to be false? And did the defendant make it so recklessly as to amount to a willful disregard for the truth? Is the plaintiff entitled to recover? Yeah, that's about right for defamation per se. So that's about right. That sums up defamation per se. Thank you. Those are very helpful, Cameron. Appreciate it. I will be going through these more. I'm interested to see which ones the court will use. So thank you so much. Question, how do declarations by Depp's friends presented? Declarations wouldn't get presented. Video depots can. They can be used witnesses have to be used. Well, witnesses are video depots for impeachment. So it just depends on the circumstance. And we've got to go what comes up in court. Man in Black 1988. Could Amber and her team get in trouble for leaking those photos that were not allowed into evidence on TMZ? I don't know that they leaked them on TMZ. I don't know who leaked them on TMZ, and I'm not sure what happened on TMZ or which photos happened on TMZ. Were these the photos of the clothing? I'm going to go to the live chat. Were these the photos of the clothing rack? I mean, because they could have come from somebody in court seeing it come up. So I don't know that Amber's team did that. If they did it in a way that goes against the court's orders and that can be proven, it might be a problem. So I think, so it depends on the circumstances. So the busted lip photo, I would need to go look. It just depends on if it violates a direct court order and if the court can show, it. Okay, I know the split lip one. Okay, I know exactly what picture you're talking about. Hold on, let's go to TMZ real quick. Hey, TMZ, don't strike my channel again. So where those photos came from is, let's see, this article. Thanks for the super chat. Amber Heard bloody lip pic after alleged attack. Depp's team says photo is a fraud. Here's what I struggle with. Oh, by the way, the earrings I always wear. Yep, they're definitely Kendra Scott. I love that the ad popped right up. Here's the thing. This is not a movie. And you don't, when you're beat up, you don't look pretty beat up. This is like pretty injured from the way you would see it in a movie. It's like, oh, I'm pretty crying. But this looks, I mean, this is really hard to see. This could be anything, or it could be a pulled skin. Look, if you were, where is the swelling? Where is the swelling? Like, where is the swelling? And we've seen her on the stand picking at her lip. Where is the swelling? And also, if you are popped in the mouth, where is the bruising or the swelling? This is I'm pretty injured, and that's not going to fly for me. If this is apparently after the attack that she described where the bed was broken, if this was after that attack and this is how she looks, I have a lot of questions. So, detailed an alleged attack at the hands of Johnny Depp, which she claims left her with a bloody lip and injury. Her lawyers tried to prove with a photo, but were shot down because it wasn't submitted in time for trial. That's fair. Submit your shit. That's how this all works. But TMZ has the photo. A photo Depp's press team says doesn't line up with the timing of the allegations. I was in one of those fights. I believe it's this one in his downtown ECB. We call it loft in the kitchen room, and he backhands me. Oh, so this is an earlier fight, not the stair bed fight. And he wears a lot of rings. I remember kind of just feeling like my lip went into my teeth and it got a little blood on the wall. Just that simple, a little blood on the wall. That's a backhand with a lot of rings. It's the same photo Heard's legal team wanted to show the jury, but Depp's team objected. I mean, I think that's a calculated call because a jury could look at this and be like, bullshit. This is all bullshit. But that's maybe not a dice you want to roll as a lawyer. Now Depp's team tells TMZ the photo is from 2012. TMZ has seen the metadata and we've confirmed that. Yet, that's a buried lead. Yet in the UK defamations case, Amber's witness statement said the first violent incident was in 2013, a year after the alleged bloody lip photo was taken. A source close to Amber says she messed up her dates in the UK case, but once she got her therapist record, it showed the alleged abuse was from as early as 2012, so the timing of the photo makes sense. Well, TMZ got the metadata, but Johnny Depp's team didn't. Cool, I have questions. So, can they get in trouble? It just depends if they violated a court order in any way. If they didn't violate a court order, then no. It's the, court of public opinion at that point. Just graduated law school today. Carolina, congratulations. Taking the bar in July. My name is pronounced Carolina. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you for giving me the pronunciation guide, because I would have gone with like Sweet Caroline on that. So thank you, Carolina. Congratulations for passing the bar. We're just going to say it now. Congratulations for graduating law school. Enjoy studying for the bar. Make sure to sleep, hydrate, and move your body. Those are my top tips for bar study. You cannot study 15 hours a day and have it stick in your brain. You need to rest. Brain needs time to integrate information. You must rest. Where did Amber Heard get the 100 million amount? Bethany, I think she said, oh, you want to sue me for 50? Fine, fuck you, I'll double that. That's my guess. We haven't heard a damages expert yet. I'll be interested to see the damages expert. That should probably come not next week, but the week after. Question 3 a.m. law nerding it out. Thank you, Anna. How does Jennifer Hallwell's declaration come into play? Is it only if Whitney somehow takes the stand? Can it be used in any other way? Jennifer Hallwell's declaration is a declaration that was signed that indicated that Whitney told a friend, and this I might be getting not completely, this is paraphrasing, told a friend that Whitney's statement wasn't true. Could it be used to impeach Whitney? You would need the witness testimony. So we'll see what happens. We're not there yet. Can the judge watch media about the case? The judge can, probably won't, but can. Question, have you seen the pictures of Elon Musk with an enormous bruise on his face while dating Amber Heard? I have seen photos where it looked like his face was red. I've not seen huge bruise photos, but I have not gone seeking them out. Question, why is Dr. Hughes subject to recall if Heard doesn't have a rebuttal? The other side could call her. I don't know if they could try to recall her during this testimony if something came up, but Depp's team could call her. I heard Ellen Barkin has been posting about the trial. Can she still testify? If she's been posting about the trial, that's going to be a big old problem. So have you heard the audio from the 5-hour recording? I have not, where Amber Heard told JD that she had taken pills the day before. The pills she listed included. I didn't, but it's interesting that she's downplaying some of that because it seems like it's weird. Tagged you in a few TikToks. Have you seen and your opinion? 1, theory of how Amber Heard lies led to the current situation. 2, video of Amber Heard beating up Whitney. And 3, Amber Heard taunting. I will go look. Normally when I see them, I will either heart that you have tagged me or comment under it. So I will go look. Have you seen the disc doc? No, have you seen disc doc? I have not. I have seen Amber Heard taunting Johnny Depp. I don't know if that audio will come in, but I think it can. I don't know about beating up Whitney. If Whitney testifies, that might come up. And I have not seen the theory. I've seen the other ones, but I have not seen the theory. Where did Amber Heard? Oh, we talked about that one. I think she said, fuck you, I'll double it. Amber Heard's lawyers, constant leading, be punishable. No, it's objectionable, which means the other side can object to it. But the other side also might want to get through things. There's things Depp did that they could have objected to through a lot of his testimony. I was sitting there going, hey, narrative, and they didn't object. So at that point, it's up to the lawyers to object. And if it keeps happening and the lawyers keep objecting, then the counsel can be admonished by the court like, no. The most egregious was the drawing on the photo for me. Fiona said, why did they agree to keep the Australia recording out? Did Depp agree to protect Kipper and Nurse Debbie? It clearly implicates Heard. I don't know if they agreed to keep it out, but I think there's hearsay. If the Australia recording, first of all, I think there's questions about the legality of that. But if there are numerous other voices, then it's hearsay as to them. And the agreement to let things in are only as to the two parties, the opposing parties, because they're both testifying and they can be questioned about the audio. Question tuning in from Sweden. How are jurors chosen out of the local populace? Different courts have different ways. Some use like DMV or driver records, but you get a jury summons to your house and it tells you to show up on a certain date and then you are questioned. And then if you are selected, you sit on the jury. So you get a jury duty notification and they're like, hey, it's time for jury duty. Come on down to court on Tuesday. See what happens. And then you go into a big jury room and then they pull people by random number and you get called into the case. And sometimes the process is more formal than that. You get questionnaires ahead of time, depending on how high profile the case is, but out of the general populace, within a radius of the courthouse where they're being called from. So in Los Angeles, it's like 17 miles of the courthouse. Some rural courthouses might have a larger radius, but it's from people who live in the area of that courthouse. If Amber loses, can this reverse the UK proceedings? No. Can Amber be charged for perjury? If I see something perjurable, I will talk to you about it. But at this point, I have not seen anything where we're there. Question, is the Netflix special Who Plays Umbridge 2, and would you be available to do commentary? Always available for commentary. Love to talk. I'm not very good at casting. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I will think about it if I come up with anything. I'll let you know. There are Instagram accounts that have been doing this brilliantly. I am not one of them. Why would Johnny Depp's previous relationship come into establishing character when the past relationships, 9-11 years, different, more recent? I don't know what they're going to call her to testify about. I really don't. So after she testifies, I will have more thoughts. Did you see Australia is looking? I have heard that. I have not seen it. If you cover OJ, can you cover the Beth product case of 1989? I'd love to hear your take. Do I need a whole new podcast on like recreating or reacting to historical cases? I feel like that's a whole new content genre of Emily Live reacts to case week by week. Kind of like the Office ladies rewatching episodes of The Office. I feel like each episode could be like a day of trial. I feel like this is a second podcast with other evidence. Can things submitted to evidence be taken out? No. They can, once they're in evidence, they're in evidence. They can be marked as exhibits and not put into evidence. But once they are put into evidence, they are in evidence. Unless there is there's always an exception. It's like, yes, but if there is something that changes and all of a sudden that evidence is not admissible, then there can be objections to it. But generally, no. Boosting for at Princess question, do they only have to prove that Amber thought she was a victim of abuse when she wrote the op-ed to win this case? They're not going that direction. I thought that they would with their psychological expert, but they have not gone in that direction. They have gone with this happened. But part of the elements of defamation is that she knew it was untrue. If she believed it, but they're saying this happened. They're not saying she thought this happened. They're saying this happened. But yes, generally it would be, look, she was not lying. And if she's not lying, but they're going to say, no, we're going for objective truth. But it's the reckless disregard element that we read in that jury instruction. The exact language being, did the defendant make the statement knowing it to be false? Or did the defendant make it so reckless as to amount to a willful disregard to its truth? They get to decide. And that is with a high degree of awareness that the statement was probably false. So then the argument is, you're not aware that this is false? And they didn't submit the kind of psychological evidence you would need to prove that she might not see things the same way as others. AM said, as a former makeup artist, why don't they ask Amber to use her palette to cover a bruise in front of the jury? Demonstratives don't always go well. I don't think they can make her do that. She doesn't have a bruise. And the OJ case rings large in everyone's mind when thinking about trying to make someone do a demonstration on the stand. So I don't think that would help anybody. Do you think the fact that Australia is investigating her for lying under oath can be used against her here? No, it can't, because it's an investigation. It's not provable, and it's outside of this judicial system, so it probably wouldn't carry over anyway. Have you watched the Discovery Channel Johnny versus Amber? No, I'm struggling to understand how the public opinion has gone crazy while court is dark. The show said they videoed each other as therapy. Part of what, I don't know if it was the UK case or not, when I was looking at why they were always recording, but it was part of their therapy. It seemed like they would this was my impression of the documents that I have read relating to the court cases, that they would like record each other and take it to therapy and be like, this is what we're fighting about. Here's the evidence. So they could talk about it when like cooler heads prevailed or whatever, or when they had a mediator. I don't understand how public opinion has gone crazy while court is dark. There is a thirst for information on this case, and there are PR teams hard at work. That's my thought. Why can't Johnny Depp play audio text convos with Paige, Dave, and Jerry when Amber testified about convos with them? Well, she wasn't supposed to. She is allowed to say what she said. She can't say what no, she's not really allowed to say what she said unless they get to cross. She can't really say what they said either unless it's for another purpose. So she said, I talked with them, but she didn't really give the whole context. And there were times they didn't object and they let it in, but he can't, those are all hearsay, especially with Jerry Judge, who is deceased. You can't cross-examine them on it. And you have to be able to bring live witnesses into court and cross-examine them. So, or, video depots as they're allowing in this case, but which can happen in civil cases. So they can cross-examine her on some things if they've done depots on them, but not if they haven't. What can you attribute the Kate Moss blunder to? Brazenness, sheer stupidity. Why would she shoot herself in the foot? ASMR gives me brain tingles. I don't know why she would make that choice. It's a choice. Though I think testifying is difficult, it's unique, but she has done it before. She's given multiple depositions. I think she wanted it in there. So maybe brazenness. I also think that there's part of this case where she is seeking to embarrass Johnny Depp, the barfing audio and stuff like that. I think there's still a little bit of, oh yeah, well, fuck you, fuck me, fuck you going on between these two. And that might have been what led to that happening. I also don't think her attorneys have very good client control, and I don't know if that's their fault. Is it possible to sue an expert witness for negligence? It comes to light that either Dr. Hughes or Dr. Curry were wrong in their testimony. I mean, it's up to the other expert to point out that one was wrong. Because how do you point out one was wrong? Unless they did something fraudulent or maliciously misled the court. No, they hire them. These are their experts. They interview them, they choose them, they hire them. So no. Mad Woman with the Box. I've been chatting with LawTube for weeks, and you're the first to get my name. You're amazing. Thank you for your response. You are welcome. I am a nerd. Do you see, there is a very flowered TARDIS down there. And there is another TARDIS. This is very hard for me. There is another TARDIS peeking out there. And then there are others that are over here. So I am a Whovian. Random fashion question, but have you found any blazers for women that actually have pockets? I haven't worn a blazer since I was in court. I tend to stick to leather jackets and athletic gear. But yes, there are blazers that actually have pockets because I used to carry my phone around in my pocket in the years when I had a cell phone as a DA. Well, I always had a cell phone. In the years that I had an iPhone, I very much remember having them in my front pockets. But yes, there are some. There are some. Question, do you think Amber's legal team's biggest obstacle is Amber Heard? Yes. They seem competent but frustrated. Kevin, I think that's a very astute observation. I think that in civil cases, it's hard when your client wants to do one thing. Rottenborn's opening, I thought, was very good. And then all the wheels came off after that. Rottenborn had a path. I don't think their client is letting him follow the logical legal path. She wants her story told, and that might lose it for them. And this is where I get to, you've lost it for yourself. Erica said, if the jury has a question they want answered of one of the witnesses, can they get the question to the witness? Not in this jurisdiction. In some jurisdictions, the judges allow that, but no, not here. So no. Emily, if Johnny Depp wins, will the court make sure Amber Heard pays the settlement? Oh, chasing down settlement's a whole nother process because clearly she has issues with that. I don't think he cares as much, but chasing down settlement is a whole separate issue, which I'm sure we'll be covering in the Cardi B, Tasha K case. So we will be covering chasing down settlements. It's not an easy process. The court can try. This is a large factor when looking at civil litigation. Can I win? If I win, can I get paid? How much will it cost me to get paid? Because it's a whole separate process. Nancy P, will the jury be left with sufficient time to deliberate given the trial schedule? Yes. I commented on Raketa's chat today before I was able to hop on live. And he was like, come in here and fight with me then. And I was like, look, the case is going to the jury the 27th. This case will be done. When the court says this case will be done, she meant the lawyers, the case, the evidence. They will rest. They will close. It will go to the jury. The jury will have the time they need to deliberate. I think the jury probably needs at least leeway for 2 weeks. And I imagine this jury's been cleared for 6 weeks of trial plus time for deliberation. So I wonder if this jury's been cleared for 8 weeks, like cleared for 6 weeks of trial time. But yes, they will have time to deliberate. The judge is not going to cut off their deliberations unless it gets onwards of 2 weeks and they're like, we just can't come to an issue or can't come to a decision. Mega said, could the Kate Moss thing wind up actually helping Amber Heard? I have no idea what Kate Moss is going to say. Amber Heard could bring in Ellen Barkin, who's iffy, but could at least muddy the water. I have no idea. It's very hard for me to what if because we just don't know enough. But anything can still happen. There's 2 weeks left. So how is JD's lawyer an agent of his behalf, but someone writing a headline for Amber Heard is not one for her? There is a legal representation aspect of that when you hire someone to be your representation. They are speaking for you in official capacity. I think Johnny Depp's team is going to argue the headline's attributable to her because of the retweet, even if she did not pen it herself, because she didn't pen the whole article herself. So I think they have a strong argument, but I also thought Heard had a strong argument about the headline. Could Depp's team have celebrated when Heard mentions Musk because it opens the door for asking Heard about her prior? It can, Tabitha. That's a possible reason. Has Warner Brothers distanced themselves from Amber Heard? Not that I've seen. Do they have a contractual clause or cause against her for lying? I don't think she's lied in their contracts to them, but I don't know. They normally have some kind of clause that allows them to drop people. Sometimes they pay people out, but I haven't seen that they've distanced themselves in any way. Maybe we will. Question, did Amber Heard copy the forensic psychology experts in looking at the jury during the testimony? I have a different take on it. It's possible, but even the experts didn't look at the jury that much. I think she's looking to the jury for validation. The way when somebody's telling you a story, they're like, are you buying this? That's just my perception of it, because it looks to me like she's looking to them, not just to tell them what to think, but for approval and to see how things are landing. She's checking in with them very much more than I normally see. Where did you get your earrings, Kendra Scott? They are on the website. They're Kendra Scott. I love them. Metadata 2012, ECB didn't move until 2013. Odd. That's an odd. Thank you for sharing that. Bethany said, why has no one mentioned that she's taking hallucinogenic drugs? They haven't gotten there yet on the regular, but she can clearly remember everything. They haven't gotten there yet. And this was one of the things that really frustrated me about the UK case, is that the UK judge seemed to discount everything Johnny Depp said and was like, oh, you drink and take drugs. He's not the only one drinking and doing drugs, though, in this. It really felt like the judge, every time Johnny Depp had to say something, he's like, oh, you were under the influence. You can't be relied upon. But so was Amber Heard. Like, if you're going to discount testimony because of that, discount all of the testimony or don't. But it seems that Heard's team's trying to have it both ways. And I don't think you can have it both ways if they're trying to say, Depp doesn't remember anything because he's drinking and doing drugs, which I don't think is fair in all circumstances. He doesn't remember anything because of this. But Amber Heard remembers everything perfectly. I think it's why she's distancing herself so much from her own narcotic use, which seems preposterous. I don't think it will go well for them. So I think it's a curiosity. Can Dr. Hughes or any expert change their mind while watching trial and testify against Amber? No. What the experts have to tell the lawyer, oh, it would be a huge deal. But they've already testified. So which prison do you think Duggar will end up in? I have no idea what the federal prison system will do. They're asking to keep him close to home. I don't think that's completely unreasonable if he can be accommodated there and kept safe there, which is going to be a big thing because of the charge he's been convicted of and because of his, relative celebrity. I think it's going to be who can accommodate his safety is the first consideration. Could Kate Moss be called from the door being opened if she watched the trial not knowing she'd be called? If she watched the trial, she cannot be called. So if they thought she might be a rebuttal witness, then they would have had to give her the witness admonition and let her know. Question, if they find Amber Heard lied on the stand, how often does civil perjury wind up in criminal charges? It happens, but not often. And if we see that happen, I will definitely talk about it. Linda said anything on in the UK trial, it was found that Amber had bullied Whitney into testifying that Whitney, was pregnant at Coachella. It was Whitney that was sick then, not Amber. I don't know. I would have to go back and look. I haven't covered the UK case in quite a while. Why is the trial in Virginia? Danielle, I covered that in the case brief on this channel. It's because they filed the lawsuit there and it was allowed to stay there because of the connection from the Washington Post publication where this was published to Virginia by their servers and printing presses. Have you followed conspiracy that OJ sent it? I have not seen that at all. I have been told that with my degree, forensic psychology, I would never be chosen to sit for a jury. Do you agree? It depends on the jury. I think a lot of attorneys would be afraid that you would be judging them. Like to be perfectly honest, I think lawyers would be like, I don't want you judging me, and worry that in the jury room you might be able to say, oh, but what about this and what about that? I don't think you would professionally say, oh, I think this of this person if you hadn't evaluated them. That's not what a professional does. So I don't think it's out of the
I don't think it's completely out of the realm, but it's highly unlikely. It would probably give a lot of lawyers pause. Lawyers want to control the information in the jury room. They want to know that you'll use your common sense, but they don't want a lot of specialized outside knowledge coming into the jury room. They want to control what you know by what's shown in court. Do you think Johnny will have any surprise rebuttal witnesses? Probably not, James Franco. But if they do, I think it'll be you. Sarcasm. Gina said, question, how are they able to present the photos before they've been analyzed when the court gave them a deadline to do so? I think they have agreed to keep moving to get this trial going. And if they are going to get that instruction that tells the jury that you're allowed to discount some of the things this side did because of the discovery violations, that might be a win for them. I don't think the photos hurt Johnny Depp's team. I don't think they hurt his case at this point. I have not seen a photo that I'm like, ooh, that photo's bad for you. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any photos yet that I'm like, ooh, that one's bad. If we do, I'll tell you. Could Johnny Depp call a video depo back for rebuttal? I don't see why not. It would have to be something that wasn't already covered, and there would have to be a reason that it wasn't already covered, and it would have to be allowed in. Could this let in more of the Aussie tape? Maybe. It just depends. Question with regard to the jury, rumor is mainly men in their mid-late 20s. IYO. I'm going to have to think on that one. Why do you think both sides were looking for in that demographic? It's really, really, really hard to say without seeing the people that showed up in court that day. So you need to look at if it's 100 people, you need to look at the 100 people and then go, okay, who are we picking from this? So it depends on what the veneer looked like when they all showed up. I think they were looking for people who said they could be fair, probably didn't have a history of abuse or domestic abuse. And I think that for Johnny Depp's team, they probably thought that men would be sensitive to being falsely accused. And for Amber Heard's team, they thought that men might be a little more lenient on a woman's testimony, saying, I really want to believe her. And I think we've even heard the men in LawTube, myself, and other females in LawTube also say, a lot of us it's ingrained that we want to believe victims and then ask questions after, but we come from a place of believing, and Amber Heard's team might be leaning into that. So that's without seeing the veneer, it's hard to say. What's the relationship of opposing lawyers outside court cases? Can they be friends after cases? I don't know if these lawyers will be, but I was very friendly with a number of defense attorneys that I worked with, quite liked them. Court reporters, went to lunch, went out for happy hours. So I have friends that are defense attorneys. I think that's more, I don't know if that's more common in the criminal bar because we work more closely together and it's kind of two sides of the same coin. Not all lawyers are going to be friends. Some lawyers are just awful to be around, but it depends on the case and how much people work together. Truly. I don't know if these lawyers will end up being friends. They've been collegial in court though. Have you considered doing some basics of justice on a higher level than people's court so that many of us are experiencing litigious life, as so many of us are experiencing litigious life? I have thought about doing some. I just have not had time to put them together based on everything I'm covering, but I've thought about doing some laundered use stuff. JD lawsuit about punching crew. An expert state no prior DV acts by Amber Heard. Now LMB is set to testify. How is this allowed? I don't know how they were allowed to ask about the lawsuit and not ask about the prior acts. I think the prior acts will come up. I don't know about LMB. Her team releasing a statement to the press that they want to call her is not the same as her testifying. We'll see what happens if she does. Can Amber Heard's testimony be more colorful because of lack of response from the jury? Nicholas, it's a great question. She could be looking and getting nothing and amplifying. That will bite her. Question, are you wearing hollow taco? On my toes, yes, but not on the phalanges. This is dip. It's a dip powder. But I am wearing hollow taco on my toes, and I'm wearing one of the toppers. The taco toppers are my favorite. What if the juror research on personality disorder and PTSD during the dark week, they would get yeeted? That would completely violate the court orders, and they could get in further trouble for doing so. Question, you are such a great speaker. Thank you. Would you consider doing content that teaches how to speak so well to an audience? I don't know if I'm qualified to do that kind of content. I would consider anything. I tend to do that type of content either when I speak on others' channels or when I do live speaking engagements. But I have been doing public speaking since I mean, since always, but at least since high school with Model UN, which was a really good training ground for how to think on your feet. I think I'm a nerd. I loved Model UN. And I was a trial lawyer. So I'm not always eloquent. I don't always speak. I don't always say exactly what I mean. Sometimes things come out wrong. I definitely misspeak, but I also know myself and I know what I'm trying to say. So I generally can get around that. But I really I've been speaking to people my whole life. Communication is high on my list of values, and being heard is high on my list of values. Also, hearing others is high on my list of values. Though when I get excited, it doesn't maybe always seem that way. It is. I like having conversations. I'm ADHD, so my conversations sometimes move a little fast. I want to talk. Question: what are the options for someone who can't do jury duty because it's a burden on their employer? I work in finance and have 20 clients. I can't disappear for 6 weeks. We will lose clients. A lot of judges won't be bothered by that. So it depends on the court. They talk about if it's a hardship. They talk about what the hardship is. But I think a lot of courts would suggest, well, can you work remotely in the evening? Like, what can you do? People do not regularly get dismissed for financial hardship anymore. So it can be very tough. Subscribe the moment I found you. Thank you, John. Love what you do. Thank you. Can you explain when perjury applies and why some perceived falsehoods in the Depp v. Heard case aren't considered perjury? At the end of the case, I think we'll just have to do a perjury video. But so far, there are not inconsistencies in court to prior sworn statements. Those might come up. And if they come up, we can evaluate them. So right now, there's nothing that's come up that we can evaluate. So we're on Heard's Direct. After Cross, I might have different thoughts, but we can evaluate and I talked about it, was it Tuesday, where I pulled the perjury law for Virginia, or it might have been on somebody else's stream. I don't know. But we talked about it. It's the difference between is it perjury and will it be prosecuted is also decides on how much it really matters to the public good to spend the resources to prosecute a case if we believe that Amber Heard is not going to do further damage to society at large or to the community at large to make it worth the prosecutorial resources to prosecute that. The perjury case I did, it was perjury in pursuit of a civil suit against a city. And so there's more of a societal or a community need to prosecute someone trying to falsely get money from the city versus someone who lied in their civil case with their spouse or ex-spouse. Carla said, do you think that Johnny being longtime friends with Marilyn Manson is a valid thing to question? I think they're trying to make a negative association to the jury. And it's a cheap shot, but who knows if it'll work. Gabriella, do your morals and role as a mother affect how you would choose to take on a client? Or is there some pledge all lawyers take to adhere to service justice across the board? Oh, Gabriella, that's probably a much more deep question than you know. It depends on context and it depends on what you do. So it really just depends on context. When I was prosecuting, there were cases that I thought should be dismissed and I fought to get rid of and was like, I'm not prosecuting this. I don't think I ethically can. So morals absolutely come into it. When you take on civil clients, you have that choice at the outset. Once you take them on unless something changes. So it's not I must take all clients, but it depends. Because when you work in the criminal realm, it's a little bit different than in the civil realm. So hopefully that answers that. There definitely were times though when having police protection on my house when I was pregnant and had a child sleeping upstairs caused me pause. Thoughts on Durham County, North Carolina saying nope to paying wrongful conviction. I'm from Durham. I don't know what that's in reference to. So I don't know what that's on question 2, the blonde swimmer. I'm sorry. I don't have context for it. So I don't have thoughts yet. Linda said, do you think the fist bump among JD's team when Amber said the dog was bitten meant JD's team could now bring up Amber lying to Aussie officials about, I have no idea. Was it the dog stepped on a bee? I didn't see any. I don't remember anything about the dog being bitten. Is JD's relationship with Manson valid to question? So I think we answered that. I think they're trying to make a negative association because they haven't really been questioning it. They've been dropping it. Just joined 7 a.m. here. Welcome, Rigatoni. Sorry if you already asked, but why is everyone so excited about Kate Moss? I did on Tuesday, I talked a little bit about what the fist bump could mean opening the door. I think it's significant to the legal team. I don't think we'll know exactly why it was significant until we see cross-examination. The interest was piqued because when an attorney is excited like that, it means they have something up their sleeve, and now we all want to see what it is. It's like it's a preview. It's like a preview for Obi-Wan. It's like we're ready to see the full show. We're just not there yet. We're all like, ooh, so it's a good preview that something is coming, but we don't know exactly what. I asked this before, but was wondering if you can elaborate. How do court find out if jury has secretly learned? I mean, generally they won't know unless a juror tells on another juror or someone sees them on social media in some way that it gets then told to the lawyers or to the court. But it's their obligation to be mindful. Jurors are generally very mindful. It's their obligation to be mindful. But generally, when I see it being a problem, jurors tell on each other because somebody will say, oh, I saw this. Did you see that? And it's like, you can't see that. And someone will tell on someone. So that's generally what happens. What would happen if they do? They would be removed from the jury and they could be in trouble for violating the court order. Technically, it's contempt of court. The court doesn't always seek to punish jurors because jury duty is a civil service and you don't want to be like, hey, you're on jury duty, you're out of work for 6 weeks. And then if you did something and accidentally you were on TikTok and something came across and that's not your fault, you didn't do it maliciously, then you're in trouble. No one's going to want to serve jury duty. So whether they choose to do that or not is, we'll see. What are the main things you think Amber Heard's defense should address prior to cross? Sandra, that is a great question. Oh, my nose is starting to get stuffy. I think they need to get ahead of some of the audio, especially the tell the world Johnny audio. If they know that the mocking audio is going to come in, if they've done pretrial motions, I would get ahead of it. The same way that Johnny Depp's team got ahead of some of the more the more challenging text messages. They need to get out ahead of stuff that's damaging. The jury's already heard that tell the world Johnny audio, and I think they need to get ahead of it and ask about it. What else? I think they need to address her not giving the full donations. I think she needs to tell that story before she's on cross. I think they need to explain that. I don't know if they will, but they need to. What else do they need to talk about? Those are the two big ones that come to mind that they really need to get ahead of. The things that can make it look like false statements. I think they need to go back and look at her testimony. And if there's any corrections, like, hey, you testified about that, which would almost be leading, but they might get away with it. They might need to go back and kind of make sure that her testimony's thorough and she corrects anything that might have been vague or could be construed as not matching other testimony. And I'm just going to do a few more and pop into the questions. I try to balance super chats and others. You guys have been so generous tonight. So thank you. I'm trying to do both. So Ario Scorpion, if a jury member accidentally was exposed to information during dark, would they have to declare it? They would have to declare it. They would need to tell the court what happened. And I think that would be their best bet, is to tell the court. Can they do a fist bump in court? And would that be appropriate? They did it. I mean, they did their little, like, is it appropriate? I mean, to fist bump a witness? Yeah, I don't know if it's not appropriate. I don't think it matches the solemnity of the proceedings. And a jury might perceive it as flippant, but it can happen. It can. My voice is starting to get very, very tired. Apologies. Question, can she handle the truth? We'll see. Question, am I the only one who is not excited for Kate Moss? I don't know if Kate Moss is testifying. Something is happening. Johnny being nice has been established, so unless Kate comes in and burns it all down, it's just going to be another boring testimony. We will see. So, I don't know why I hear there's static in my mic. I don't know why. It might just be my voice being tired and my computer trying to tell me. It's also, there's a storm and it's Mercury retrograde, so I apologize. I'm going to get to the last few super chats. If you guys put them in now, I don't know if I will get to them, so I'm going to get to the last few. Not an expert. One of Amber Heard's audio sounds altered to me. Is it legal? If it's altered, no. Is there a legal reason to use altered audio? No, there's not a legal reason. So I see you guys. Hold on. I don't know what would have caused static because literally nothing's changed on my end except the weather.
and I don't have another mic. So apologies if my mic is giving out. So apologies if the mic is giving out. The mic and me is done, apparently. Sorry. It's tech. I mean, tech. I don't know why, and I can't hear it on my end. So apologies. All right, good. We fixed it. I'm going to do the last few as I can, and that's what we got. I mean, the fact that we haven't had more, the fact that we haven't had more tech issues in how much we've been streaming is a miracle for everyone. So if it's proven to be altered, it would be a huge problem. So, but the attorneys have to deal with that with the court. The blonde swimmer, a guy was wrongfully convicted for a double murder in Durham, misconduct in the police department, and more. Court ordered Durham to pay $6 million, and they refused. Already spent $4 million to defend their people. Huh. I would need to look at it more, but that's an interesting choice to refuse to pay it. That is an interesting choice. So, since Amber's testimony is still going on, is she able to talk to her attorneys? She can talk to them, but not about her testimony. So, trial strategy and stuff, yes. Testimony, no. Should this jury have been sequestered? It's too long, and it's a civil case, and they wouldn't have paid for it. And the jury's going to have to act like responsible adults and not be on the internet. Zena Wren. I thought Amber Heard testified that she never did MDMA. She minimized it very much. That she never did MDMA with JD. She said she didn't do it after that one flight, but then she said earlier or later that she did MDMA on a plane with him. Is that perjury? You would have to look at the exact questions and the exact lines, and it would have to matter, not just be an item to be cross-examined on. While a lot of things can technically be, oh, you made a false statement under oath, there has to be more to it than that, than just I said I contradicted myself for it to be prosecuted. So there's a difference between did you technically lie under oath and will it be prosecuted? And that's the leap here. That's a disconnect. It's like, nope, caught. You said this and this. And context of the questioning and flow would matter. If there's a discrepancy potentially as to time, that would matter. So it just depends. And with the ecstasy, I remember her saying, I would never do it with him again after saying about the plane trip. I don't remember her saying before she had never done it. Chris said, not that winning would affect this, but can Johnny go back and sue for falsely accusing him of the TRO? No. It's no, too far gone. And that case already settled. And when that case settled, that was all done. So no, too far gone. No, it's been settled. No. So, with that, we are going to wrap up. So thank you guys. Last question. How do you expect Amber Heard to react if Johnny Depp wins? Badly. I expect that her PR team will say that. What do I think her PR team will say? Hold on. Last question, me. Also, last question. It has a lot in it. Let's see. I'm looking for the PR statement because I'm going to tell you exactly what they're setting up on from my tweet on the street. Tweet on the street. This is from Chanley Painter over on Court TV. Spokesperson for Amber Heard. Let's see. The same team is so panicked they are fighting tooth and nail to prevent compelling evidence and photos from being introduced. I imagine what they're going to say is this court and this team were unfairly keeping out evidence. I mean, mind you, we've all seen the motion for sanctions about the evidence, but whatever, go off. I imagine they're going to say that this is misogyny, that this is blaming the victim, that this is a legal system without justice, that she was persecuted by Depp, and that the court not allowing all of the evidence to come in is what caused this jury to be duped. I imagine it would be something like that. I mean, the flip side of it is if Johnny Depp wins, he can say, I've been vindicated. The court in the UK discounted all of my testimony because this is my speculation on their argument, because I am a man, because I am, because they thought that I had been using drugs and drinking, and because the judge definitely discounted a lot of JD's testimony, and that was hard to see, but that's what the judge decided to do. I don't know if this jury is going to say, oh, well, the man drinks and has done drugs. Obviously, he can't testify. I think his testimony came across as very credible. I don't know if hers did, but I think that's how her team, how her PR will spin this. We've already seen the headlines. I mean, you already see the Amber Heard headlines. Well, TikTok influenced the jury. You've already seen the headlines. It's not right that everyone's mocking her testimony. It's not right that she is being called Amber Heard, #MePoo. Like, the society turned against women and victims, and therefore this jury was somehow influenced. Nope. So I think that's part of what will happen, but we'll see. There's a lot of articles about her being mocked and how unfair that is to her. But again, she has the choice to get up and testify the way she gets up and testifies. That is her choice. It is her case. She can choose. And with that, law nerds, thank you to the moderators for riding for 3.5 hours. I appreciate you. Law nerds, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for all being here. This has been a huge turnout for a Friday Night Live. You guys literally have changed my life. I appreciate you. I love doing what I do. I love talking to you all. I would literally talk forever, but also I want to go say goodnight to my oldest and take a bath and go to bed and see you guys on Monday, bright and early, with a mega pint of coffee for Depp versus Heard, day 16 on May 16th. Do I love it? Yes. Expect things to go wrong. There is going to be tech. Just, we're expecting it now, but we'll fix it. We'll take care of it. Thank you, everyone, for riding. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being a law nerd. Take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. Rest up. Y'all, we got trial on Monday. We are in trial on Monday. So court is adjourned until Monday, and I will see you then. Thank you for being here. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.